have prepared remarks because everything we do today is going into the record. So, good morning. Thank you all for being here today. This is a very important hearing. It's been a long time coming. This process began because of you, the citizens. You brought your concerns to our attention and we listened. For those of us outside the HSU service area, we had no idea the challenges that you'd been facing. Almost 2 years ago, we began a series of meetings coming to Holly Springs, Ashland, and other communities to hear directly from you. Your voices and experiences shaped this path forward. With your input and with the support of the legislature, we were able to create a process that brings us here today. Let me be clear. Holly Springs Utility Department power system is in critical condition. You'll hear that today. I know that the good people at the utility district know this, the citizens know this, and again, the independent study that we're going to hear from today will show you what kind of critical state that the system is in. You cannot continue the way it is. Status quo is not an option, because right now the citizens of Holly Springs and the surrounding area are suffering from lower property taxes, discouraging job creation, and holding back economic development. Holly Springs and that utility district is poised to explode with economic investment. But as Commissioner Stamp said, people don't trust where the system's at, so the money doesn't come and invest in the community. What we do here is to try to lead everybody in HSUD forward together with an adequate, reliable power system. Once we get there, opportunity will blow. Holly Springs is poised. That whole area is poised for economic development and growth. You have I-22, Highway 72. If we get this right, 5 years from now, that we won't recognize that area. Opportunity will come to everybody in that district. That's our goal. This commission has heard you and we will not ignore you. We are committed to seeing this through so that tomorrow will be brighter for the people of the community and for every customer who depends on HSUD. This is a hearing, it's not just a meeting. I know we've heard people talk about, we don't need another meeting, and we don't. This is a hearing to allow the city of Holly Springs to respond to the independent study that Silver Point did. So before the commission today, we have docket number 2024 AD 37, Mississippi Public Service Commission. It's a complaint versus the city of Holly Springs response and investigation into the adequacy of electric service being provided by the city of Holly Springs. Upon being vested with jurisdiction by the state legislature, the commission within days, this is just an overview to get us started, but within days launched an investigation into the city of Holly Springs and its Holly Springs Utility Department, entering its order establishing this docket on April 11, 2024. As a part of its investigation, the commission is holding this hearing to determine whether the Holly Springs Utility Department, sometimes referred to as HSUD, has failed to provide adequate electric service to its customers, including those located within its certificated area. This show cause hearing is being conducted pursuant to Mississippi Code sections 77-153 and 77-321, and as prescribed in the order establishing the docket. As the commission encourages public participation in this hearing, members of the public in attendance will be allowed to make comments today, but this will be reserved until after the evidentiary portion of the hearing and both the city and commission have an opportunity to put on their cases in chief. We will begin with entries of appearance. Stephanie Taylor, Kyle Jones representing the Mississippi Public Service Commission, John Perry Jr. representing the City of Holly Springs, Um, Stephanie, you're recognized to
Okay.
speak on.
Our first order of business is for, you have, y'all, the three of you have in front of you a memorandum, and it's asking the commission to give Silver Point Consulting LLC, the representatives of which are here today, written authorization to publicly disclose the results and findings of their investigations in this docket in accordance with Article 17, entitled Publicity in the Mississippi Public Service Commission Contract for Services, in advance of this show cause hearing.
Okay, any discussion? We good?
Okay. So y'all just make a motion and then if
Okay.
you agree on that.
Have a motion, have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll get you a signed copy of that. Council, before beginning your case in chief, I would like to remind you that please adhere to the rules and procedure for show cause hearings before the Mississippi Public Service Commission. Your client has the burden of demonstrating why the commission should not find that the electric service being rendered by the Holly Springs Utility Department is inadequate in violation of Rule 4 of Rules and Regulations Governing Public Utility Service and Mississippi Code Section 7733-3. Please be aware that the rules governing evidence admissibility in hearings before the Mississippi Public Service Commission are more relaxed than court of law. The commission is not strictly bound by the Mississippi Rules of Evidence. The primary standard for admissibility is that evidence is relevant and reliable, the kind of information that responsible people would rely on in conducting their own serious affairs. Relaxing the rules of evidence means that hearsay evidence is not automatically excluded. The commission, like other administrative bodies in Mississippi, can admit and rely on hearsay if it is considered reliable. Per Rule 15-115 of the Public Utilities Rules and Practice of Procedure, the record automatically includes all filed pleadings, pre-filed testimony, exhibits, orders, notices, briefs, proposed orders, and proposition papers. In addition, any and all data requests prepared by Silver Point Consulting LLC investigation, which is the subject of this docket, shall be and hereby admitted into evidence. The city's response to said data requests are admitted into evidence to the extent Silver Point's report relies upon such responses. Yeah. Madam Court Reporter, please swear on all witnesses planning to testify before the commission today.
So, yeah, two of y'all should go up, and then whoever else. Yeah, two of y'all should do that before the call.
They can do it from the seats, right?
Yeah, they can do it.
Yeah,
Okay,
so-
that's fine.
Yeah.
Just
You
stand.
would stand.
Yeah.
Stand and raise your right hand.
Stand and raise your right hand, please. Do you all solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Court Reporter. At this time, the commission invites our attorney, Stephanie Taylor, to introduce the independent consultant. Whoop. Oh. Got you. At this time, the commission invites counsel for the city, sorry, to present an opening statement if so desired, outlining the issues and the evidence the city plans to present, showing why the city believes the commission's action is unwarranted or why the investigation should be dismissed. You're right.
To the commissioners,
Yes,
Commissioner
sir.
Brown, I want to say first that we're not here in an adversarial posture this morning. Without a blanket stipulation to what is in the report, we are accepting the contents therein. We do want the opportunity to speak to the contents, though, and to speak to the problems that existed in times well before any of these individuals would have been in leadership capacity that they're in today, and to try to see if there's a path forward that the city can undertake to try to do what's best for the consumer as well as to try to do what's best in keeping with HSUD and how to do some of the things that the commissioner mentioned earlier as far as the economic opportunities that exist and that could somehow be, with proper investment, et cetera, that could be achieved. We understand some of the difficulties that were undertaken by Silver Point in their investigation, and you'll notice that the posture somewhat of who's going to be representing the city has changed. The reason being, it's a new administration. We don't stand here today in any way to try to denigrate any administrations prior, nor any administrations prior to the preceding administration, but we do want to look forward at the proper time. And this is not in any way try to sugarcoat what the findings are and to try to diminish what will be said here today, nor to diminish the concerns of the citizens that brought those concerns forward, as they should. But we do want to at least have the opportunity to try to rectify some of the issues that have existed and that have, to be quite frank, have existed for quite a period of time. And with that spirit in mind, we will go forward. I do want to at least identify, you have Mr. Wayne Jones, the general manager of HSUD. He's to my far left in the blue sports coat. You have the newly elected Mayor Terry, Charles Terry. And please state your name again for me.
Lee Morris.
Mr. Lee Morris to his right. And you'll have Alderman at large Ship from the Holly Springs Board of Aldermen. And so with that in mind, we, like I said, we do plan to go forward, and I know we have an opportunity to give like a closing remark after the presentation, from my understanding, and then accept whatever the comments are, and to try to address those comments as they come, or questions as they come from the commissioners.
And just for the record, Mr. Morris is with the Attorney General's office.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And I just didn't want to didn't want to skip him. He introduced himself, and I was familiar with his name, but we had just met earlier today.
Yes. Thank you. This time, the commission invites our attorney, Stephanie Taylor, to introduce the independent consultants for the presentation of their findings and conclusions upon completing the investigation of the Holly Springs Utility Department's electric service. Ms. Taylor, you're recognized.
Thank you. On May 14th of 2024, the commission issued a request for proposals in this docket seeking qualified individuals or firms to investigate and reach a conclusion on the adequacy of electric service being provided by the city of Holly Springs. I'm going to refer to the city of Holly Springs as the city from now on, but I'm referring to the city of Holly Springs. Upon demonstrating competence, relevant experience, and resources to perform the duties set forth in the scope of work, Silver Point Consulting LLC was retained by the commission on August the 5th, 2024. I'm going to refer to Silver Point Consulting LLC as Silver Point for brevity. Silver Point has at all times remained independent from the commission, conducting the investigation with no input from any employee of the commission or the public utility staff, except for me, the attorney assigned by the commission to assist with conducting discovery and obtaining documents and data from the city. Though the discovery process was frustrated by a lack of cooperation, repeated procedural delays, and data dumps, which are a part of the record, Silver Point nonetheless persisted, employing best efforts to obtain all existing data and information responsive to its requests. The city made available key personnel for interviews, which took place in the Commissioner's Northern District Office on April the 29th and 30th of 2025. From this discovery and from publicly available information, Silver Point developed and created a written report, which is publicly filed in this docket, and was done so on July the 28th of 2025. Ms. Stephanie Favreau, principal of Silver Point, is here today, accompanied by Mr. Tom Suggs, her associate. And so at this time, I'm going to call Ms. Favreau and Mr. Suggs to the stand. I'm going to call this the stand, and we're going to swap spots, and I'm going to let them come sit here, so you'll have an expert panel to direct your questions to. But I'm going to do a few little things first before we get to y'all's questioning.
Do you need some more chairs?
Oh, no, I'm just going to pop down here. It's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
We're just going to do a little swap. I'm pretty loud, so I don't think you'll have a problem. I'm gonna I'm going to start with Ms. Favreau first. Ms. Favreau, will you please state your full name and professional title for the record?
Sure, it's Stephanie Vavro. I'm the principal of Silver Point Consulting.
And I'm going to hand you, Stephanie, what is your, this document, which I want you to take a look at and identify for me what that is.
This is my CV. It's attached to our proposal.
And was this document prepared by you?
Yes,
And is the information in the CV true and correct?
yes.
I'm going to mark that as an exhibit. I'm going to give y'all a copy of it.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll have that, go ahead and have that admitted into evidence. And I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing for Mr. Suggs here. Mr. Suggs, I'm gonna hand you this document. Can you identify for me what that is?
That's my CV.
And, is the information contained in the CV true and correct?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna also make that an exhibit, and I'm gonna pass out a copy to everybody on that as well. The tie, it's like a resume for experts. Oh, okay, sure. Okay, the next thing is, Ms. Favreau, I'm gonna hand you, I'd like you to identify, this document.
This is Silver Point's final report in our investigation.
And did you, along with Mr. Sugg, prepare this report?
Yes,
And this is the report that's filed in the docket, it was filed in the docket on July the 28th of 2025.
yes it is.
Okay. I'm gonna have that marked as for identification only. This is, y'all, this is already in the docket, so we don't need to make it a formal exhibit to this proceeding, but I just wanna mark it for identification, so we need to. Yes, I've got copies. Don't worry. You got one. Johnny, you want a copy of that too?
Other report, no, I
You
got
got
it.
that? Ms. Farley, does this report fully and accurately reflect the findings and conclusions of Sept Consulting LLC upon completing its investigation of the Holly Springs Utility Department? It does. Do you wish to make any changes to the report on file before adopting the report as your sworn testimony in this proceeding?
No.
Having confirmed the truth and veracity of this document, do you adopt this information contained therein as your sworn testimony in this proceeding?
I do.
All right, at this time, I'm going to ask that Ms. Favreau and Mr. Suggs be given the opportunity to give an overview to the commission of their report and its findings. And at the conclusion of that presentation, the commissioners can proceed with any direct examination of these experts that you would like to ask.
Ms. Favreau, I know it's hard, but there's no microphones, so just speak as loud as you can.
They actually have one here.
I think
I
that-
just don't, so I may be a little bit over that.
That's just for streaming. It doesn't cover the room, so
Okay.
just, I apologize for that.
Okay,
Just speak
thank
as
you.
loud as you can for those in the back.
Okay, is this much better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I was assuming that worked. Good morning, Chairman Brown, Commissioner Stamps, Commissioner Carr. We're pleased to be here today. Silver Point was selected to independently investigate and present conclusions about the adequacy of service being provided by Holly Springs. And we've submitted our report for filing in the docket. First, a brief overview of our investigation. Our team began our investigation in August of last year. We were, however, prevented from making much progress for the first 5 months or so. In January of this year, as you recall, the city obtained a temporary retaining order in the first show cause hearing. But shortly after that, the city's outside counsel began to facilitate provision of some documents in response to our initial discovery request. And at the end of April of this year, we were permitted to conduct some brief in-person interviews with some of the Holly Springs personnel. We provided the city and the utility until the end of May of this year to provide some additional documents that we had requested, at which point we then officially closed fieldwork. We began the draft of our report, and on July 27th, we submitted that for filing. For the record, our team was never in direct contact with anyone from the city governance leadership, either former or current. And to the best of our knowledge, the decisions about which documents were provided to us, and perhaps more importantly, which ones were not provided to us, as we understand it, those decisions were made by the city and not by the utility themselves. So, on to the discussion of the actual report. What I'd like to do this morning is we will spend maybe 10 to 15 minutes giving a brief overview of the report. We will not be able to touch on everything, but we welcome your comments and your questions afterwards.
And just so everybody knows, the report is filed online for anybody to read.
Chapter 2 of our report is really,
You have a- Sorry.
Can you give us a brief overview of your experience and how long you've been in the industry?
sure.
Thank you.
The last 25 years or so of my career has been devoted to conducting investigations, reviews on behalf of state regulatory commissions, typically focused on natural gas and electric utilities. And so those may range from complete management audits of regulated utilities to people like Consolidated Edison in New York, for example, to things like gas procurement audits. I've looked at storm response for commissions, reliability studies, kind of across the broad range of things. My 15 years before that were in other kinds of industries, not necessarily focused on this area. So Silver Point was formed in 2008, so I've been independent since that time.
Thank you.
Sure. Chapter 2 of our report is very important. It's more or less that sets the backdrop to our investigation. And in that chapter, we summarize the findings and the recommendations that were set forth in a report by TVA back in March of 2023. We also talk about the subsequent investigation by a team from TVPVA that did a summary investigation of the utility and provided a report in October of 2023. These two reports offer what we believe evidence of common sense recommendations that were provided to the city and to the utility about ways to improve the quality of service. And we refer to these and the actions taken or not taken by those parties throughout our report. Chapter 2 also summarizes the legislation you referred to earlier that was passed in April of 2024. That's Senate Bill 2453, which was subsequently codified in Mississippi Code. Two specific sections, Section 77-3-21 and Section 77-3-22. Both speak to particular decisions that the commission's asked to consider in reference to this utility. The specific language in those sections of the code, reasonably adequate service and unwilling or unable to adequately serve customers, help to define the focus and perspective of our investigations as we went through. The report was written to help provide guidance to the commission in the decision making it needs to make in the context of those two pieces of the code. The other important thing we set forth and talk about in the report is the overall evaluative framework that we apply during our investigation. And that's good utility practice. And that's, I'm sure, something that's familiar to regulators everywhere. But we felt that it's important to make clear that when you're looking at a utility that really has no quantitative operations reliability data, which is normally the case for utilities, and you can compare and contrast to other utilities and determine whether they're well run or not, was missing here. And so we use good utility practice as a reasonable proxy to determine the extent to which the utility is or is not complying, as a good indicator of whether they are or are not adequately being operated in a way that's safe, reliable, and efficient. So we use that terminology throughout the report. We want to make sure that that was well understood. It's a reasonable proxy for the absence of actual data. As I mentioned earlier, a key part of our inquiry was looking at the extent to which the city and the utility either did or did not take any action in response to what we considered common sense, pragmatic suggestions by TVA and TVPPA 2 years ago to improve the quality of their service. We felt that was a reasonable indicator of willingness and ability to adequately serve customers, which is one of the areas in which you all are going to be called upon to make a decision. The findings of our investigation are the subject of Chapter 3, and I'm going to turn that over to my colleague in a second. Just as a brief overview, we organized our discussion into 4 main topic areas. That's system operations, preventive maintenance, system planning and analysis, and then metering, customer service, and billing. We're going to talk about those in some detail, but we certainly won't be able to cover all points. Tom, as you know, was the lead investigator on the TVPPA report, and so he brings a wealth of knowledge and perspective to our report, which has been incorporated into it. So now I'm going to pass the baton to Tom.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. Any questions for me before I start? If you want to repeat the question? Yeah, just give us an overview of
Your experience
your
and
experience.
You do want to hear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yes, sir. I'm a utility guy for 41 years. I spent the last 25 years at an electric co-op in Middle Tennessee as Chief Operating Officer, responsible for everything related to the grid there. But I've experience in distribution planning, vegetation management, outage restoration, emergency plans, research and development, all aspects of the electric distribution system. That's been my whole life up until I retired 2 years ago, and have doing a little consulting since then.
thank you. Mick, proceed.
And as Stephanie mentioned, I was before you about a year and a half, 2 years ago, presenting the TVPPA report, and that was a rather lengthy presentation. This will not be that or to the same level of detail. So I just want to keep that up before we get started. I'll go through these 4 areas that Stephanie mentioned.
For the
Yes, sir.
record, what he's referring to is the TVPPA report done in 2023. It's online as well, so you can compare the two.
Yes. I'm going to go through these 4 areas that we really focused on and provide just a couple of examples. These examples were chosen either because I feel like they're really significant or they really show no movement since the last report. Various reasons, and we'll go through those, but there are lots of other things that we could talk about. In the area of system operations, for example, we look at how effective HSUD is in just the day-to-day operation of the system. We look at things like just the routine maintenance activities that come up as you're doing day-to-day activities. We're looking at blue sky outages. We're looking at new service orders, completing work orders. We also looked under this category at emergency response, emergency planning for large-scale events. And then also under this, we talked about adequacy of their staffing and some comments and some detail about the management of the utility. So I'll start with that first. It looks like that HSUD has had at least 6 different general managers in the last 10 years, and none, or maybe a couple, very, very little actual utility experience in that position. Both the TVA report and the TVPPA report had as either the top recommendation or one of the major recommendations that the big first step is to bring somebody in that position with utility experience. 12 to 15 years in a similar role at a utility. And given the lack of electrical engineering expertise within the utility, it was suggested that the general manager have a strong engineering background, or at least have a plan to supplement that with some engineering background. For some reason, whatever reason, the city in their wisdom, they hired someone with that experience. So I can't speak to why, but from what we can see through our investigation, major decisions are still being made by the city at the time that we concluded our investigation, with no input in some cases from the management or from the operations people. So the day-to-day responsibilities of management at the utility are really unclear. Not sure what's going on there and who's really running things. So that was difficult. And so you've got the operations people just kind of doing their thing out in the field. I hate to say seat of the pants, but I'll say seat of the pants in a lot of cases. So concerns there about the management structure, the lack of technical expertise, the lack of utility experience inside utility, inside the city. We also looked at the staffing, and they're hurting. They're down to 2 line crews now for our service area that's like 1,600 square miles.
How many?
Two line crews for 1,600 square mile service area, 12,000 customers. There were 3 there when I did the TVPA. Really what's going on there, but certainly they were understaffed 2 years ago. They're still understaffed, and even more so at this point. So backlogs are continuing to grow. It's not a good situation. Yes, sir.
Typically, how many for that 1,600, how many people should be there
For that area.
for that area?
I
I know
answered
that's a
that-
difficult question.
It is, and I answered that before based on of my previous experience at Natchez Trace EPA just down the road here in Houston, which is a similarly sized utility. We had like 4 or 5 line crews and multiple servicemen, and they were big crews with heavy equipment. At least twice what they've got, maybe more. It's a hard question to answer. Information was difficult to get on the actual organizational chart and the staffing and how many employees are actually are in what roles as we were going through the process. So that's on the staffing and the management. On the rest of the operations, of all the things we could talk about, I think the biggest one is the storm response, the emergency planning. We want to focus on for just a moment. A well-run utility should have an emergency plan. I mean, it should have processes and procedures on how you deal with things when an ice storm or different things are coming along. And HSUD not only doesn't have a plan, they don't have really much of the information that would go into a plan. There's no system maps. There are no procedures for how to prioritize restoration. There's no procedures on how to do damage assessment. There's no processes or procedures in place to onboard contract crews that are coming in, which is really a problem. And that really showed up in 2023 during the ice storm when outside crews refused to come in, basically, and in some cases to work on the system because they could not be assured that they could work safely there. And the Mississippi Emergency Management Agency took what I guess is an unprecedented step of taking control of the outage restoration away from the city and actually brought in an outside utility manager to run that. And at that point, I think we had some people that were willing to come in and work. That's just unheard of. So at that point, based on that, both TVA and TVPPA report again urged them strongly to develop an emergency response plan. And 2 years later, there's been no movement on that as well. So that's really all I was going to mention on the operations side. Again, there's much more in the report. Second area, talk about is preventive maintenance. And again, you know, any utility regardless of size should have preventive maintenance plans. They're going to vary based on size, but there should be something in place there. Page 29 of the report, there is a table that details a lot of the different components of the electric system and also spells out some of the types of maintenance activities that should be done on a regular basis to keep this equipment up and running and so that you can support safe and reliable operation of the system. During our investigation, you know, we were told there is no preventative maintenance program in place at Holly Springs Utility District. So we'll focus on two areas of all the ones that are in that table there: substation maintenance and vegetation management. These are the focus of some recommendations. Again, I'll refer back to the two earlier reports. Vegetation management is more than just trimming trees. You know, there's ground right away, there's substation, there's spraying. There's lots of components to a vegetation management plan. And if you do that right, as you well know, you can really reduce the number of outages during a blue sky for sure, and certainly reduce the impact of tree-related problems during big storms. During our report, we confirmed that the city really doesn't have a vegetation management program at all. They did have some contractors on the system a few years back, and they were all let go. And at one point, they were down to just an in-house crew, primarily doing hotspot trimming. So nobody's really addressing the bigger picture of the vegetation. The reality of that is that over time, you get to a point where it's not enough to just go and trim to get back. You've got to go back and reclaim rights of way, which is much more time-consuming, much more expensive than simply keeping it maintained. And that's where Holly Springs is right now. They're at a place where much of the right-of-way is going to have to be reclaimed at significant time and significant expense. And then at that point, someone would be able to go in and maintain it if it was properly seen after. So, but the reclamation process is where they are now. We were told that during the investigation that the city had recently hired an outside vegetation management contractor. We repeatedly asked for copies of the contract and the RFP for that, and we were denied access to those documents. We don't know why. So we're not sure what's in the contract or what's being done on that front right now. I'll move on to the substations. Substations, as you know, they're critical parts of the electric system, and the most expensive equipment on the system resides inside these substation fences. And it's very important, once again, that you have a maintenance program in place where you're assessing the condition of this equipment and making sure that you're staying on top of problems or getting ahead of problems before they occur. A substation transformer outage, substation transformers are millions of dollars sometimes and a couple of years sometimes to get replacements for. So that's a concern that you want to stay ahead of. Holly Springs is not doing any meaningful maintenance in the substations. Taking a few readings, but there's no analysis being done or anything like that on it. As an example, one of the simplest and most important things that you could do is oil sample testing in the transformer. And typically the insurance company that underwrites these devices will provide the kits and the testing at no charge because they want to make sure that what they're covering is well maintained. When I was there 2 years ago, they had sample kits that had been provided. I don't know how long they had been there at that time. They had 4 sample kits, and they had not taken any of the samples. At the time of our interviews, they still had not taken any sample. And we further determined that they don't have 4 transformers, they have 11 transformers. And no one could really explain the discrepancy, so we don't even know if some of those transformers are insured or not, which is a concern as well. Not only the maintenance is an issue, but as things happen, they're not remedied. I'll just give two quick examples. At the North Holly Springs substation, there was an explosion adjacent to one of the power transformers probably 7 years ago now. It still has not been put back into service, and the damage to the structure adjacent still has not been repaired. So they've got a transformer sitting there that cannot be used for anything.
Just brief statement.
We have a lot of ladies that are standing up. If they're able-bodied
Category. So they're old TVA transformers that the city acquired at some point.
And what kind of oil could possibly be in
PCB,
Yes.
we did not go, either in the TVPPA report nor this report did we look into the environmental stuff.
Okay.
What would happen if, obviously, if they're not checked and the oil's low, what happens at that point if it gets too low?
Well, the oil being low, you hopefully you would see that because you'd see leaks around, right, and you'd catch that. But some of these other things, I mean, the worst case is it blows up. I mean, it literally blows up. You get an arc inside, and you've got combustible gas. It's going to blow, and you don't know if it's just good. The damage would just be limited to that piece of equipment, or did it destroy adjacent pieces of equipment as well? There, lots of factors there. At the very least, it's going to fail. Maybe it's not catastrophic from a visual standpoint, but the internal are damaged to a point it can't be reused, and the system protective devices and all are fast enough that they trip it offline before it actually ignites, if you will. But in any case, it's non-usable anymore. And in the case of the one at North Holly Springs, I don't know if anybody even knows if that transformer is usable or not. But certainly, if it's been out of service for that long, I wouldn't want to be the one that stood there and made it energized again. I wouldn't want to be standing beside it. You just don't know. It may be fine, but it's been allowed to stay that way for about 7 years again.
It appears to be staged as a replacement, or
It appears to
be like staged as a replacement, or is it, what's this?
No, the station was built with 2 transformers, each one serving basically half the load. And when the failure happened, they just switched everything over to the other one, which is fine from a capacity standpoint. The problem is if something happens on the other one now, you don't have a backup. So you've lost the redundancy, and you haven't done anything to try to get that back.
And if that one went down in that particular area, how many people would be out?
I do not know. We couldn't get access to any type of system planning information or mapping information, so I really have no idea.
But a good portion.
It's in the city, so it would be quite a mix of commercial and residential and possibly industrial. I don't know what the industrial base is. The other place I'll mention is those 60 to 70-year-old transformers. When I was there before, many of the gauges that indicate oil temperature, those types of things that you would rely on to tell you if a problem's happening, have labels on them that say bad gauge, out of service, that type of thing. It was recommended then that those be repaired. To this point, they have not been addressed. So not only do they have these old transformers, the monitoring equipment does not work, and there's no plan to fix the monitoring equipment.
And there's no reports that y'all received on anything?
No.
The history of those transformers, the maintenance, nothing?
No data.
No. The third topic I'm going to go through is on system planning and analysis. We'll talk about planning, and we'll also talk about some outage stuff here. When you're doing system planning, you want to make sure that your infrastructure, your circuits, your substations, and all are capable of serving the load that's imposed on them by the customers. And over time, that load changes. hopefully it grows, right? And so you're continuing to look for ways or where you need to make improvements in your facility, upgrading the capacity of lines, adding new substations, these type of things in order to make sure you can serve the load. You do that through the system planning process. So the last system planning, well, let me mention this too before I get to that. It's also good practice to analyze your outage records as part of this process, because knowing where outages occur and why outages are occurring, where they are occurring over time is also part of that planning process. The last system study that was done on the system dates back to 2009. So it's been 16 years since there's been a study. We made, again, repeated requests to see the study, and it was never produced. So we don't know what was in the study as a recommended course of action for the future for the utility. We just can't say. But nothing's been looked at since then. We were able to confirm that really the only system improvement project that's been done since 2009, and it was a good one, was construction of the Ashland substation. But other than that, we have no information on any improvements that have been done. I will say, though, that I noticed this in the first investigation and also again, at some point, there was work begun on a circuit out of the North Holly Springs substation that was going to feed the Red Banks area. And a lot of work was done on that. There are poles set, a good bit of work done. But nothing's been done in years. It's just sitting there. And so I asked the questions, and we really can't substantiate whether or not that project was in the 2009 work plan, but as we talked to the operations people at Holly Springs, they said, well, we really didn't need it, so we just stopped working on it when the workload got big. I don't know if it's really needed or not. Again, we don't have access to the study, but if not, I guess in any case, it just seems to be a waste of capital, a waste of time, mismanagement of funds, if you will, to go spend a lot of money on something and then just stop and say, well, we really didn't need it anyway. And again, without the study, that's as deep as we could get into the reasons why.
I will mention the Red Banks area was the subject of a lot of the customer complaints that you provided to us about reliability and power quality issues. So it may have been needed and started and then abandoned. So as to whether it was or wasn't needed, we couldn't get a straight answer.
Yeah.
But it seems like it would have been useful.
So just from those of us that are not in the system, arguably or possibly, if that was completed, it could have increased the reliability in that area, but we don't know.
Yeah, well, we don't know.
Okay.
Exactly. Just talking about outages for just a minute without getting into details of where they are or where they're happening. It is important, though, for the utility to understand that. I mean, what we were dealing with there is a system that collects no data on outages. They do create some data in a spreadsheet, I think, when an outage occurs, but when it's completed, that's deleted out, and so no analysis is done. It's important to know where your outages are occurring and why they're occurring, so that you can identify, this is my worst performing circuit, or this is my worst performing circuit because of trees. This is my worst performing circuit because of animals. And you can then plan and spend your capital and make your plans for vegetation management and other remediation appropriately. They don't do any of that, so you talk to the employees, and I did this more at the first one than this one, but and it's anecdotal. Everybody's got their own opinion on where the worst stuff is based on where they went last time they were on call, right? And so that's what you're going to think. So there's no real data to base anything on, and even more as we talked about the basic metrics, SAIDI, the kind of things that utilities look. Nobody really understood what those terms even meant. So there's no analysis being done at all on the outages. The last area, and then I'll be done for just a few minutes. We're talking about the metering, billing, and customer service. Really, I'm gonna focus on the metering system here because that just tells a big story, I think, about the breadth of problems that we have across the utility. And just for everybody's benefit, you know, they've got an AMI system, and an AMI system, smart meters, they're also known as. These meters, you know, they're normal meters, but they have a communications module inside, and they talk over a network. They may talk to adjacent meters, they talk to data collectors, and send that information back to the office so that the billing can occur. And so you've got just a few components. You've got meters, you've got collectors, you've got a network, and you've got a head-end system. They put a system in 2014, which was a good system. I mean, a good vendor, all that type of thing. But even from the beginning, the vendor recommended something on the order of 100 data collector locations, and the city decided to go with 70. We think to save cost. Well, it didn't work in some areas very well, so they added a few more data collectors, and they were able to get the read rates up to about 90%. That's about the best it ever did, based on what we could find out. It was about 90%. Over time, things happen, and we won't get into all the details because they involve vendors and companies selling and those kind of things, but non-AMI compliant meters had to be used on the system. So now you've got even more that won't read automatically. Over time, the read rate got down to about 70%. And in addition to that, the data collectors themselves, when they first got the system, they had spare parts and spare collectors, so when they'd have a problem, they could go out there and replace it. Well, they used up all that stock, and now if a collector goes out of service, they have to send it off, and it's a 2.5 month process to get it back. So you've got a hole out there in the system now where it won't read. The adjacent collectors will try to pick it up, but if you remember what I said at the beginning, they put in kind of a minimal system to start with, so it wasn't as robust as was recommended. So the ability of the system to really fill in those gaps when there's a collector out of service is not very good. So they got down to about 70%. We're having to go back and read a lot of the meters manually again. But then more recently, there was a router, part of the IT system at the vendor that they bought from was changed, which necessitated a change by Holly Springs to do something similar in order to allow the meters and all to continue to communicate. For some reason, they decided not to do that, but rather reinvent the data process, the whole process. And then from what we could tell, they never got that working. So for the last several months, they can reach 0 meters through their AMI system. It does not work at all. And so every meter has to be read manually, and is what we were told. And that has resulted in meters not being read for several months, customers getting large bills that cover several months. It's just a very, very bad situation, and they're really behind schedule. And I guess a concerning thing about this too is there's maintenance that has to be performed on the meter devices themselves, the CT meters, PT meters. You know what I'm talking about here on the large customers. You've got a lot of connections. You've got current transformers. You've got all these pieces of equipment in there. You've got multipliers on these meters. A lot of that stuff is likely not right and has deteriorated. But the approach that seems to be being undergone right now is they're looking at replacing the meter system, which is going to cost several $1 million. I don't know where that comes from. But if you simply replace a meter system and you haven't got correct multipliers on your industrial meters, you're going to have brand new meters sending out inaccurate bills. You've got to get to the root of the problem here. You can't just go change the meters out and think you've done something. So I guess that's my part, Stephanie. And again, there's lots more, even like in that customer service and all these others, lots more things we could have talked about, but in the interest of time, we just wanted to hit some high spots.
Okay, in terms of just overall conclusions, We felt that the shortcomings that we identified during our review were really consistent with the kind of reliability, service quality, billing-related issues that were reflected in the 1,000 or so complaints that we reviewed that came in through the commission. There were recurring themes in what we saw throughout our evaluation: inadequate management, inadequate technical engineering expertise, reactive versus proactive maintenance techniques, insufficient planning analysis, and I guess questionable choices that have been made along the way, which appear to be maybe influenced by the city's financial resources. The metering fiasco that Tom just talked about is really a prime example of that. It's a combination of initial poor decision-making, negligent maintenance, and just management's inability to respond to operational challenges. Replacing a router, no, just went off and, I don't know, never did anything, and watched its metering system circle the drain and did nothing. Prime example of sort of the overall management of the utility. In terms of recommendations, again, there were two sections of the code that we focused on. First was section 77.3-21. We recommend the commission does find that HSUD does not render reasonably adequate electric service. We believe that was apparent 2 years ago when TVA and TVPPA made their reports, and by the sheer volume of complaints that you all received and that TVA received. Our report just merely confirmed that. They've also really consistently failed to implement any of those pragmatic recommendations that were made 2 years ago that could have potentially helped to improve the quality of service to customers. Given that, we do not recommend allowing the city additional time to potentially make additional improvements. We suggest moving on. In terms of section 77.3-22, and the commission considering whether the utility is unable or unwilling to adequately serve its customers, we recommend a finding to that effect. In terms of inability, we think it's pretty clear they lack sufficient technical operational management expertise to effectively reverse the downward trajectory the system's been on for quite some time. In terms of unwillingness, we point to the TVA complaint that was filed on May 1st. That clearly documents the city's refusal to adequately invest in its electric distribution system. For decades, they've consistently drained the resources of the utility. In terms of willingness, we're considering that more financial unwillingness to support the utility. There's additional language in section 77-3-22 considering grossly inefficient, irresponsible, or unresponsive to the needs of customers. So there is language in that section that says the commission can submit a finding that the city's management of its electric system is grossly inefficient, irresponsible, or unresponsive to the needs of its customers. We recommend such a finding. In terms of next steps, Mississippi Code doesn't really prescribe specific steps. It does outline one option, which involves petitioning a court in terms of receivership. Our interpretation is that that's not the only option. And so from our perspective, we felt finding an entity willing to do that would not necessarily be easy. And we felt it was not necessarily the quickest path to securing improvements on behalf of customers. And in that context, we had recommended something focused to be able to identify reasonable alternatives. We threw out a few examples of those. One was just outright condemnation. One was transforming into some kind of cooperative. The other one was, seeing whether neighboring utilities would be interested in taking over. There are undoubtedly other options, but we felt that exploring whether any of those would be viable and possibly get you to where you want to be sooner might be preferred option than necessarily jumping right to receivership. That's an overview of our report. We'd be glad to take questions.
Thank you
Just
for.
ask one question quickly of y'all.
Yes.
These were your findings and your conclusions in your report. Were these findings and conclusions made to a reasonable degree of professional certainty?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you both for your presentation. Commissioners, any questions at this point before we turn it over to the city?
We can hear from you first.
Any questions now? Okay, Mr. Perry, at this time, we'd like to provide an opportunity for the city to offer rebuttal evidence.
Sure. There is no rebuttal
He wants
evidence.
to cross-examine.
We would like to do it.
Cross-examine them.
Oh, yeah, and you have an opportunity to cross-examine as well.
Right.
Yes, sir.
That, what I would like to ask is,
Yes, sir, you have the, yes, sir.
I read the report, and it was put together in a very professional fashion, and it got to the heart of the issue. I want to first speak, or ask this question, I guess, to Ms., and I want to get your name correct. Is it
Vavro.
Vavro. Ms. Vavro, do you have an estimation of the cost to remediate the system overall?
The short answer is no. That was not part of our scope. I think it's important to point out that to accurately determine what kinds and the extent of the investments that would be required would really require some level of engineering review, almost like a system plan, but perhaps scaled down to simply ballpark and give people a sense of what's needed now, what might be needed within 3 to 5 years. That would take a professional engineer to review the system, and I think it's fair when you're looking at what are some of the options to get some sense of what that number is. I've seen numbers thrown out in different reports that are all over the place. I don't know where they're getting those numbers from. I know in the TV PPA report, they gave an estimate of the remediation for the tree trimming cost, I think of around 10 million. But as far as all the equipment, capital, those kind of things, we did not develop an estimate.
And you, starting at the report, you first talked about some of the difficulties in receiving certain information within HSUD. You, I guess as a part of that, you had certain communications with the various employees there. I know your report notated that the most senior member was in his 80s and seemingly had the most information to provide. Likewise, I think his subordinate or immediate subordinate would have been a person that had been with the system for some 30 years also. And there was a concern regarding replacement of the individuals, I guess what you would call brain capacity, the individuals that had the information. Taking away that, do you think that there are individuals, as far as the actual employees working there, did you have any concerns regarding their abilities to perform their job duties? I know that there was a concern regarding the top management, and the concern said that there should be a person with some engineering background, et cetera, and maybe 10 to 15 years of experience in that similar capacity. But outside of that leadership position, the individuals that were working, linemen, et cetera, did you have any complaints at all regarding those people within the confines of HSUD?
I can speak to that from the previous time there, because I spent 2 weeks there in the building with the guys, and the short answer would be no. Those guys, they care, or at least they gave me the impression that they did. And let me say this to your first point about the information residing in those 2 senior employees. I guess that speaks again to the data's not being captured and analyzed and all. It shouldn't matter that you're the most experienced or been there 40 years to know where the worst circuits are. that should be available for anybody inside the utility if you're accurately capturing and evaluating the data. So, but it is, under the way they operate now, a lot of knowledge is gonna walk out the door with those two gentlemen when the time comes.
In absence of concerns like mapping, the information regarding the systems analysis that have been in, I guess, maintenance of data, those types of concerns you have with the brain trust that's currently there, and if they leave, that might be irreplaceable unless you have records that would substantiate what they know. Is that?
Well, I don't know how much input they had into the studies and things, because they didn't seem to really be aware of the studies. And I don't know what, in 2009, there may have been an electrical engineering on staff. We don't know. We don't have access to that information. That might not have been their role at that time. Their knowledge is more, just where the weak spots are, on the system. And there's a lot. When you get an area like this, there are areas that you have to take special care of, if you will. And they know this because they've been there, and they know how to get this back on. It's a little unusual. If it goes out, that type of knowledge walks out the door.
Another important area, they keep the rest of the workers safe. They know the system in their head. They know where people are working. The folks have no lockout, tagout procedure. Those are some of the things that prevent mutual assistance crews from wanting to work on the system. They don't have the basic maps, so they're flying blind. What keeps the Holly Springs people safe are the fact that they have people who have been there, in some cases over 60 years, who know everything in their head and know where people are and know that it's okay, where someone stepping in after that will probably get someone killed.
And you go into I guess, the road that I'm trying to get to, there's not an issue at HSUD regarding the actual employees. That's what I noticed in your report, and I'm trying to at least point to an area that we could try to improve, be it to market it to the approaches that you said. At the conclusion of your document, you indicated that you did not, at this time, recommend receivership versus the possibility of marketing it. But and it's not an issue in an adversarial way, but it is a concern, at least if I'm looking at it, as I address the commission regarding it. How do you do evaluation of it other than to talk about the things that are rotten in the system?
I think if the current employees were sufficiently managed by very knowledgeable owners and managers, they're capable employees that can execute job skills. The people that do lineman work, the people doing customer service and things, they're capable to do their job function. They're not capable of supervising themselves or directing themselves necessarily. That would be the role of general managers to do that. So without that, they're self-directed. Your word was seat of the pants, because they don't have the technical background or knowledge. They're just operating day to day based on what they know.
Now, you're talking about the engineer to your next to you. His word was seat of the pants in the report, and it talked about when there's outages, et cetera, not being able to I think there was a component of it that spoke to the radio system, for instance, that they were using cell phones versus the radio system that everybody could keep up with what people were doing and that type of thing. But that's not to the employees; it's to the technology that they have in place. And it seemed that the issues that were outlined, the root of those issues were concerns of capital and investment and the top leadership of HSUD, as opposed to anything regarding the actual effort from the employees, et cetera. Correct?
I just want to be clear on what you were saying about the radio system, because our understanding is they purchased a new radio system, and the employees just decided they didn't want to use it, and so they don't use it.
Right.
So is that the employees, or is that management, or both, or whatever? That's symptomatic.
But I think the quote what you said regarding it was there was no management that required, or discipline was the word that you used, that discipline in place, which I would presume might have come from the fact that there's been 6 general managers over a 10-year
Quite possibly.
timeframe. So if that discipline, in other words, was in place on those employees to use the radio management system, that is something that's already been purchased. That's not a capital investment, but most of the other parts of your report seem to indicate things that would be capital expenditures seemingly from the report.
I don't know, and, you know, to the radio system, they haven't used it, I don't know how many years it's been there, I doubt any maintenance has been performed on it, because.
No, I'm taking the radio system out of it. I'm
Yeah.
saying the other aspects of it are capital type of investment requirements.
Not everything, but, I mean, things like collecting outage data doesn't require any capital, that's just a process, that's just a procedure that you train somebody to do, but.
And managed it. That's what, I mean, I understand that. Well, this is what I'm getting at. If you're saying that a receiver will not help, and the time frame that you're saying is an immediate time frame, that we need to market it to either neighboring, to a neighboring company, a neighboring municipality?
That's not what I'm saying, no. My point is to find an entity willing to take on the utility and make investments in it, try to turn it around with the potential of it having to be given back. Not too many entities out there are gonna be interested, and so spending time trying to find one and the amount of time between making real improvements that customers see might be unusually long. There might be something, a different path that gets results quicker, and that might be perhaps something like a neighboring utility. Other kinds of options that will allow positive improvements to be made quicker. Receivership is its own kind of thing, and it's, again, when we look at the size of what needs to be done, there's a lot of capital, a lot of time. Is that something an entity will want to take on and then throw the keys back to the city? It doesn't sound like something that would be.
Let me ask this question. Has there ever been the option that you gave outside of the receivership that you said that you don't necessarily agree with in this instance? And I respect what you wrote in the report, but has there ever been the option that you laid out in the state of Mississippi from any other entity?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think there's ever been a proceeding like this from day one in the state of Mississippi.
Right. And I appreciate that. The issue, though, with my question is, from a legal standpoint, how do you say that the remedy that's provided by state law, seemingly being that of a receivership? Now, I'm not saying give the keys back to whatever the bad actors are without any sort of remediation or any sort of other structure outside of the Board of Aldermen. There are a number of ways that a receivership can work, but I am asking respectfully, what precedent would there be in the state of Mississippi? And like you said, there's been, and you said this is one of the worst situations you've seen. I get that. But what I am saying is the statute says what I read as receivership being the.
That's not correct. If you read it, it says that the commission, if it decides to, can petition a chancery court towards, it enables them to go that route. It doesn't tell them to go that route. It really is silent on next steps, which is why we wanted to add to the record that if that's the only option, we should try to explore other ones before you take the next steps. That's the only point of what we were trying to make there, because it's not, it doesn't say if you find this, you must do receivership. It just permits them to do that step if it chooses to.
Mr. Excuse me.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
Let me just clarify your statement. Are you saying that you're not recommending receivership, but you're recommending giving authority to another entity for
No,
remediation?
I'm suggesting that the finding under section 77.3-22 that they're unable or unwilling, that would be what you would rule. My point is when I read that section, it doesn't tell you what to do next. It just says, by the way, if you decide to, you can petition a chancery court for receivership. And so to me, that meant it doesn't really tell you what you have to do next. It's just saying you could do that if you wanted to. We were just trying to, add to your consideration of maybe there are other things you could consider before that might bring about change faster than receivership, because I think.
Ultimately, if I understand you correctly, we're all trying to get to stabilization and get the system working as fast as possible. And in your opinion, that may very well slow down that process.
We just felt
We
that.
don't know.
we don't
And just for everybody's, we have never been here before. TVPPA's report, in TVPPA, there's 153 members, and this is the only one out of 153 that are having this kind of issues. And so,
We have been at $4,700 light bill that's being read every 65
but
days.
I'm sorry, we'll get to public comment at the appropriate point. But anyway, sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Perry.
No, that was it as far as the cross-examination, and I didn't want it as a true cross-examination that I normally am trying to beat you in the head, but I did want to ask that point and try to, at least to get there, and then to make the statement to the commission at the appropriate time. But that was my issue, was in looking at the full 75-page report, I understood everything. The hold off on receivership versus, these other, and I did then try to research whether or not the proposed alternatives existed in this state, and I never saw where that exists in this state. I didn't see that under the current construction of the Senate bill or any statute or any other preceding law saying that. And that's not to say that that's not proper, but I just didn't see it. And so I want to at least address that concern and try to see if we have a pathway forward.
John, if I may just say, receivership is obviously something that the commission can do. These other options are more to say, and before jumping straight to receivership, let's come to the table and see if we can talk. And that's really what those options are. Let's come to the table and talk and see if we can do something to move, the city will agree to do something, take some action, either sell their system, do something else besides put it into receivership, if that's a possibility. I think it's more of a, sure, the commission can, it would be more of an agreement, I guess, but rather than say, yes, we can, take this system and put it into receivership. That's obviously something that can be done under statute, but maybe in lieu of that, because that would draw this whole process out and maybe be difficult to locate somebody willing to do that. Maybe there's other options that we should explore, kind of look at that. I think that's all we were trying to do. Exactly.
I think, ultimately the focus is on resilience. We try to make sure that outages are minimal and that the process of reclamation begins. And I think that's, should be a common path. I think was the point of those statements.
I don't know if this is the time to address before the comments or after the comments. I'm taking my guidance from you guys. Am I supposed to talk to you now about what we at least want to try to do, or do you want to do that at the conclusion of hearing from?
Yeah, you can do it now.
Yeah, well,
thank you, Mr.
To the point made by counsel just a moment ago, and for years I called Stephanie.
She calls you John.
Right. So to that point, a path forward we're fine with. At the beginning of the presentation, the package, it talked about some of the difficulties with receiving information, et cetera. And I think that part of that would have been the fact that there was sort of an adversarial feeling, and that's, for whatever reason, that it seems that, hey, a lot of these issues that have existed for 20 plus years have come home to roost. but it has come home under a particular, administration. And if you take an approach that says, hey, I don't want you coming into to HSUD looking at this, that, or the other, for whatever reason, then obviously some of the belief will be, hey, they're not willing to do X, Y, Z. Well, to that point, two things. Number one, it's new administration that has taken a different approach. Some of the recommendations, and the recommendations can't be adopted just wholesale overnight, but the board has taken steps to try to say, hey, look, we want to do what's best for the consumer and for the entities that are receiving the power. And we know that there are problems that they are having with HSUD. Number one, not getting your bill, and as the gentleman said a few moments ago, that if you get some huge bill after a 5 months period without a bill, that's unfair to you, and it's unfair, to be frank, to HSUD, because obviously we're not capturing the cost involved with providing the utilities. So that is one of these chicken egg type of issues. There's I guess a problem that you say, hey, since 2009, there hasn't been this capital improvement that was described by the gentleman a few moments ago. Also, since 2009, there hasn't been a rate increase. There should not be a rate increase if you're not getting quality service. But that still does not stop or belie the fact that if your TVA, the cost of providing energy would have reflected the same thing with every other aspect of the world. GDP's gone up, and so has inflation. So $1 in 2009 is what costs $1.66 right now. So those differences are something that if the city has, and to be quite clear, obviously there has been an issue with the funds that have come from HSUD and seeing those funds and not doing the waterfall as it relates to paying vendors, et cetera. But those weren't things that were created within the last 4 years. Those were problems that have created, that were existing over time. Eventually, a problem just like if a child's eating just candy all day, eventually, that's going to catch up. You're going to get diabetes. You're going to get sick. And that's what's here right now. What we're saying is, if these are problems that are going to take some time, to say that right now, I think that there should be tomorrow type of action as opposed to the implementation of a plan that, number one, will have to be generated by an engineering firm. That's to be clear. We can come up with things that might sound good for the public, but we've engaged an engineering firm and voted on engaging an engineering firm to come out and do the type of study that has been recommended. The second component of it, TVA, TVPPA, they've all made the recommendation that, and I'll be the one that gets hit over the head about this, but the rates will have to somewhat come up. If I'm the consumer, I'm going to say, man, to hell with that. I don't want my rates coming up if they're not doing ABC correctly. But the realities of it is somebody has to pay for ABC. You have to get a return for your buck if I'm a consumer. But likewise, you have to be able to do what it takes to go out to the substation that's providing utilities in the Red Bank area. Also, there was a concern about the South Holly Springs area and the generators that are out there. And how do you do those things, though? How do you get an AMI system that can read all of the data properly if you don't have to have some sort of mechanism to make these capital improvements? Likewise, at the same time, you talk about the fact that you might need some kind of structure on creating a GM that has the type of capabilities that, and to be frank, Mr. Jones has done as good a job as you can if you are in a system that is there is a political system in place, that if the top of it has to be mayor, board of aldermen, if the day-to-day operations is mayor, if the policy operations, board of aldermen, and board of aldermen saying, hey, we want to implement the TVPPA, and the day-to-day operations, for whatever reason, might say, look, we don't like the way that we think that people are trying to take away from the investment that the city has made in trying to operate this HSUD. So if you have that issue in place, that creates a dichotomy that is difficult. And I don't care if he would have had all of the engineering expertise in the world, it is a difficult undertaking to come into place and to try to provide leadership if you're getting some sort of conflictory type of information. But he's tried to do that, and he has worked with TVPPA, and he has come up with information, and particularly over the last 60 days, that somehow can try to get us on a path forward. It can, and I believe that to be, I guess, the only contradictory thing that I'd say against what the recommendations are. There does need to be a period of time that no matter what, nobody's going to come in and buy or create a cooperative tomorrow from HSUD. So you're going to have a time frame here that the city is going to have to continue to try to put in the capital resources that's necessary to do what they, yeah. But you still have to do those things. You're still going to have to, while there are whatever undertaking or adoptions of the different recommendations, to respectfully disagree, there's got to be some time, because it can't happen tomorrow. It just can't. So what we're saying is, if we're trying to move forward, and if we're saying we don't have necessarily any sort of problem with there being some more oversight from this commission, let us have at least the opportunity to try to move it forward. And that's what I'm respectfully asking.
Sorry to interrupt. We have to have order. There will be a segment for input, and we want to hear from all of you. And we've heard where the system is. This show cause hearing is to allow Holly Springs to give their side of it. So we have to hear from the city, and then we want to hear from you as well. So just keep order, and then we'll get through this process. And thank y'all for your patience, Mr. Perry.
Yeah, and back to the point as it relates to the different options, the way that I read it, and the reason that I had any kind of questions whatsoever was to say this: if people have a problem with the work that's done by, I understand the understaffing issues, but the people, the manpower and female power that's at the utility department, they work hard. They enjoy their jobs. They are trying to do what they can do. But at the same time, if we are engaging an engineering firm to try to expedite things, right now, as far as the audits and the efforts to catch up the audits, those are necessary before we can even engage in any sort of capital improvements that would be necessary in the system. And I understand the frustration of the people. Problem is, what can anybody do different as far as investment that's going to have to happen in HSUD unless there is some sort of efforts taken by the current structure of HSUD to improve itself? Nobody's going to come in tomorrow and say, hey, I'm going to pour in $100 million into HSUD and make it better overnight if the audits aren't forward. And I just think that we can.
Appreciate your comments.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what is the city's plan?
Can I call Mr. Jones up?
Yeah.
And before I ask you, I guess, or a lot of questions, the reason that I asked him to come up, the first part of that is he has been working on trying to answer the individual. There were a number of bullets that are there. So when you asked the question, what is the city's plan? The first step toward that was at his urging, and we've had communications with TVA consistently over the last 35, 40 days. What we've tried to do is to address the specific bullet points. So when you say, what is the city's plan, the first part of it was to engage an engineering firm to at least come up with what we need as far as requests for proposals, requests for qualifications for certain individuals to be able to come up with how to implement what they're saying as it related to what I call them criticality studies, but the studies that will show where are the areas that need the first part improvements. As far as the billing cycle and those types of things.
Let me just ask a simpler question.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Could you articulate your ability to serve your customers? Because you're on the verge of losing your system, Mr. Mayor. So today is a very important conversation. And the first question is, speak to your ability to serve your customers.
And he's the general manager.
The general
not the
manager.
mayor, so yes.
I'm not, I'm sorry. I said mayor, but general
Yes,
manager.
yes, sir.
Speak to your ability to serve your customers.
All right. Can you give us a brief of your history before you give us your plan? A little bit about your background, your life experience, what field are you in?
Kind of an expertise, and then kind of what position you're in, how long you've been there.
Okay. I've been the general manager at the Holly Springs Utility Department. It was May 28th was a year, so now it's a year and 3 months, okay, when I started. My background, I have an associate's degree in electrical instrumentation technology. I have a bachelor's of science degree in electrical engineering technology. I have 30 years experience in telecommunications. I was a fiber optic subject matter expert. I was a technical auditor, write requirements and specifications, systems and reliability for telecommunications, anything that had to do with fiber optics and telecommunications, and my project management experience in engineers. I've been a consultant. That expertise is what I've been in foreign countries for what I know, for what I've learned how to do as far as engineering and telecommunications is concerned. So that's my background. As far as my, does that answer?
Hold on. That's good.
Obviously, this is the first time it's ever happened. So, Commissioner Stamps and I think Commissioner Clark, and our questions are going to kind of be directed to not only you as the city attorney, but Mr. Jones and the mayor, if you don't mind coming up as well. Because ultimately, our job is to have a path forward. Now, I think everybody wants that. But we start looking at the track record and where we're at. You know, there's millions and millions of dollars owed now. We've heard that right-of-way clearing's $10 million. So if the right-of-way clearing's $10 million, outstanding debt, the way I appreciate it, is almost $10 million through what's owed to TVA and what's owed to contractors. So that's $20 million just right there. And then you start getting into the substation repair and the other items that they're talking about. How much, I mean, the utility district is owned by the city of Holly Springs. Y'all are responsible to provide service to all of the utility district. How much money can y'all invest to make sure we understand the struggles and the trials that has been talked about by the Silver Point report and the previous TVPPA report? It's been under, my understanding is the management of the system has been lacking through a series of hiring, not you, Mr. Jones, but six managers in 10 years. So there's a huge amount of money now that has to be invested into this system. The city is responsible for it. Can the city invest $20 million this year into the system? $10 million right away. We know that. $10 million to pay off debt, so we don't get, I don't think TVA will ever cut the power off. They're not going to make sure, they're not going to let people suffer. But just right there in those two components, $20 million, we have not even addressed the infrastructure and the switches and all the different substations that we're talking about. So ultimately, what's the ability of the city to plow $20, $30, $40 million in this year or next year to have the resiliency and the reliability that we all know? I don't think anybody here disagrees. That's where we're at. We lack resiliency, we lack reliability, and that is allowing the city to suffer right along with the county and everybody else. We're suffering from lack of investment, lack of industrial activity, lack of housing permits, rooftops going in. So all of that is suffering together. And so, and I appreciate the way you led, Mr. Perry, that this is not the posture is not one of, combativeness. Because I do think we should all want the same thing. But the ultimate question is, how much money can the city plow into this system that has been neglected for 20 plus years? And I think ultimately that's going to tell the tale of the ability of Mr. Jones and his team and the mayor and the new board to be able to address the issue is it's going to cost money. And the reality of it is nobody trusts the track record of HSUD. So, and I will ask this question, the legislature appropriated $500,000. I think 60,000 of that went to the TV PPA report, but the balance of that was supposed to be earmarked for right-of-way clearing and maintenance. Last I heard, that's been 3 years, 2-3 years, and that money has still not been spent for right-of-way. Has that been let?
That money is, it's still, it has not been misappropriated.
Sure,
I want to
right.
say that. So it's sitting.
It's still there, but it hasn't been. There's no RFP been let to allow that to even that money to go into to the maintenance system. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. And Mayor, I apologize. This is Mayor.
This is Mayor
New elected Mayor Terry. So just have open comments. Just introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you all for this opportunity and receive one of you. Let me give you some of my background prior to becoming mayor for the last 65 days. I retired from the telephone company industry after 35 and a half years working there. So I'm familiar with infrastructure type of work and what it takes to maintain that system, as well as keep it updated as to where you're prepared for future growth. For 14 years, I served as supervisor in the county as supervisor District 1. So I have heard the complaints coming from the residents, even though I had no direct connection to the city utilities. They did complain to me because they were looking for an ear, and I gave them that ear. So as me coming into the mayorship for the last 65 days, I have started looking for all of the options that we can to improve the Holly Springs Utility Department. I have made visits to it and interviewed some of the employees there individually to see what their input is, what they think we need to do to improve the utility department. As far as that monies that you're talking about for the vegetation, I've even inquired into, because my idea was, hey, let's spray it. Let's use that $400,000+ and spray the right away. And talking to individuals that had other vegetation management in place, they said they didn't think that was the right idea. So our last option was, and we were talking about the $430,000 where it is, and I know it's been there for 3 years and hasn't been utilized. So the next option that we're looking at is to get contracts, utility cutters in place as to where we can manage those hot spots. At least $430,000 is not going to clear the mileage of wire that we have in the city of Holly Springs Utility Department, but we can concentrate on those hot spots, and that would be a difficult area to even complete there prior to we not having that data and knowledge. But the manpower that we have, they say they have the knowledge in their heads, they know where they need to go, where the hot spots are. So that's going to be my next suggestion to the board, is we utilize those monies to clear the hot spots as best we can. And $20 million coming out of the utility department, coming from the city, there's no way we're going to be able to do that without some assistance from the local, the government, legislative, and federal level, and whatever. We are in a crisis now as to where we need to help. And I do want to say, by me being here, that it shows that I'm willing to cooperate and work with any entity that's necessary to try to right the ship.
Okay, interesting.
So I got 2 pages of questions. All right. Well, first, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being participatory and willing to address the needs of the customers who finance your operation, not just the customers who vote for you. So thank you for that. That's definitely a breath of fresh air in this conversation. I got up at 4 o'clock this morning to drive up here, and I don't want to come back here for the second time and not do anything. So there are several recommendations that have been proposed of action to happen. So I'm going to ask some very pointed questions, and if we need to pause for a second for you to get the appropriate answers, just know that there's some very pointed questions. What's your GO capacity, government operations wise, to offer assistance from your GO bond side to help mitigate the problems in your utility district? So do you have any bonding capacity on the city side to leverage, to put into the system, the utility system?
And I know you're asking the mayor questions. I'm not going to.
And I know you just got there, but I'm asking some capacity questions here.
Right, and what we've done recently, we've been allowed to do, based on recent board action, we've engaged government consultants to come up with a plan regarding that. And so I don't want to even speak to that exactly. I have an idea, but in this forum, I don't feel comfortable saying what our capacity is, simply because we don't want to be or make a statement that's above 15% in those types of things.
Right.
So I would ask my client to not necessarily say where it is, but we will put a public statement forward regarding that after we get that information back from government consultants.
Well,
they're looking at our other, there have been some other
Right.
bonds. We've never missed a bond payment or anything like that.
Right.
So, but we're wanting to get that information before he gives you a pointed answer to that question.
How much do you have bonded out right now on the GO side of the fence? That should be, you might have to ask somebody, send somebody a message.
I can get that information
back
for
to
you.
me over the list of these questions. That speaks to your willingness. One of the key findings here, it says you are unable to serve your customers and unwilling to serve your customers. So these questions are aimed at you providing specific documentation to, or answers to those questions. Your bonding capacity as a city and your bonding capacity as a utility district. Do you know what your capacity is to bond with your present rates to date?
Once again, I would prefer answering that, and I didn't realize that you were going to go into the bonding capacity in this setting.
Because
I'll provide that information to you in a few moments.
So there's no money coming from the federal government.
Right, we understand that.
There may not be money coming from the state government. So the only money that will be invested into this system will be by the ratepayers of the system. The cheapest, you have to look at the scale of it. There's different numbers that have been thrown out here of ranges of how much money it's going to cost to mitigate this system. You spoke to there being a range. Can I ask both sides questions?
Sure, yes.
Okay. What are the ranges of dollar amounts that you've been presented that solve this problem, and over what time period? Because the time period will determine the range as well. So, because if you solve problems faster, it's going to be more expensive. If you solve problems over, several years, you may be able to level that cost out. What are the ranges that you've seen in the multiple reports that you've been given?
Well, when I did the TVPPA report, I think the number like 25 million was in there over 5 years, but that had nothing to do with anything owed to TVA, and it did not address everything. It was what I considered to be the most important stuff: the vegetation, the substations. There might have been something else. So it was just to get us started. I mean, to make a big splash, but it's going to take time, to do something like that. Then beyond that, there's going to be many, many more millions. I don't know if it's many more tens of millions or not. It probably is, but I can't speak to that because we didn't really look at that. But I've seen numbers from 25 to 110. I don't know where all those numbers came from, but it's a lot, and it is a relatively long-term thing in my mind. I think 5 years is a fair amount of time to clear the right-of-way, get substations up and running, and then see where you are.
5 years may be the most expensive way. I've heard that it may take 10 years. But at the end of the day, whatever that number is, 25 or 110 million is going to come from the folks in this audience, primarily, other than if some other people or entities are able to contribute to a degree. But in this space, we got to talk dollars and cents, and the folks in the audience need to understand that these are your dollars and your cents that will be paid to do this.
And Commissioner, I'll add to that the city can't tax outside the city limits.
Correct.
So the bulk of this 25 to 110 million is going to fall onto the city of Holly Springs. It's your responsibility.
Well, they can bond the utility side.
Correct. But
based on their service.
But the fact that the city controls the utility district is going to fall heavy. It's going to be, the money is going to come, basically, lion's share of it from the people within the city limits.
No.
I think it's just.
It's going to be the customer base of the utility.
On the rate side.
On the rate side.
On the rate side. The rate side. We're talking about the capital investment. The rate is a little bit at a time.
Right.
But the capital investment that they're talking about, 20 million, just say, the debt that's owed, just say it's 5-6 million to get back right, so the contractors come back in, and then the right of way and others. So that lion's share of that startup money, if you will come from the taxpayers of the city of Holly Springs.
And how is that gonna happen? Since 2010 to 2025, you've decreased in population. How's that gonna happen? Everyone has the assurance of your track record for them to move here, economic development, whatever it may be. We don't have that assurance. These citizens don't have that assurance based on your track record. How we learn to keep from making mistakes in life is look back in history and see where our mistakes is. And they've testified that their unwillingness to cooperate with them or with us or with anyone. You just turn a blind eye to everyone, knowing, I'm not saying y'all, I'm saying them to pass, just turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to everyone. All they hear is crickets. And they're tired of it. And we've come to this spot. So I heard a saying last week that a gentleman says if you're in Georgia and riding down the country road and you see a turtle sitting up on top of the post, he didn't get there by himself.
Right.
So it's going to take a joint effort. There's that assurance and that peace of mind that's not there. I'm not saying that y'all, this has been a long time coming. So I just have very big concern about not this, and these linemen and these men that are working, I've been there. They're doing their best. They're putting themselves in harm's way. And the inability to take a resource away from them, no matter what that resource is, when it comes to safety, should be priority one. And there is numerous reports of safety violations here. And so I don't know where that leadership is at that's standing in the way, but leaders, true leaders that I have followed in my life, they know when to lead and they know when to follow. They know when to get out of the way and let the men and the women that have that knowledge to lead. And when they ask for something, it's not an ask. They're telling you they need it. And I've looked at the reports on the trucks that these men work out of. I wouldn't get them. I don't know anybody that would. Not the linemen that I know. It's terrible. It's worse than third world.
Again, this is not a standard court proceeding, so it's never been done. Again, I'll restate that. So we're progressing, and we're going to cover as much ground as we can. I know that Commissioner Stanton.
What are your present rates?
You're asking some questions about our governmental operation that I'm not prepared to answer yet. Like, I'm sick 5 days on the job. But I would like and this report was made, and I have to accept the report, but it was made prior to July 1st, and I can't speak back for that. But I want to take that part out as to where, I can't take it out of the report, but I want to take it out as going forward, that we're not willing to cooperate, because we are willing. I think with myself and the board that's decided now, we've all expressed our willingness to go forward with, to produce the reliable electrical service for our ratepayers. That is something that we're trying to do, but it didn't happen overnight. And as you said, out of 6 utility managers, I don't remember you saying any of them had the qualifications that's necessary to move us forward. So that is one thing that used to say Commissioner Carter, that we have to learn from the past. And I think that what we need to do is start looking for managers that know the system and how to get us out of this as well.
Thanks. So my questions are lined up with willingness and ability. Okay. So what amount of raising are you willing to do with your rates?
I think right now, and to appreciate your question, we know what TVPPA has made a recommendation of around 8%. That they're saying that would make, as far as the capital costs of operations going forward, to be more in keeping of being able to provide remuneration to the vendors and to TVA, and to make sure that operations are functional properly as far as what ongoing costs. And to speak back to your question as far as the GO bond, that's based off of the capacity that the utility department has, and to me, it's a complex structure. To the people at government consultants that deal with that type of accounting, it's not that complex. But it's, you look at the actual valuation of the utility department as a whole to do that bond, because it is somewhat separate, respectfully, than a standard city issue GO bond, which would be based on one.
The reason I brought that up is that on the GO side, you have the abilities of the full faith and credit of your city and the financial wherewithal and prudence of your city. On that side, it seems to me that the city has been leaning on the utility district, and now the utility district needs to lean on the city in order to have ability.
Yes, sir. It's a backwards problem. Like you said, there has been that, and that's been for a period of probably 20+ years, according to what PPA has looked into, and to the data that has been provided for the last 60+ days. You're spot on. I think the issue becomes a problem when you look at the rates being based off 2009 rates, but you're purchasing energy based off of current rates, and TVA's costs have gone up. Vendors' costs, if you're providing gas, a dollar at the gas pump is not going to get you the same thing as $1 in 2009. So that's going to cost you $1.65 today. So those are some of the realities as it relates to costs that are involved to getting it up. And to speak to that point, once you start that process of relying on the utility district, for the city relying on the money from the utility district, particularly if you skip what is required as far as TVA, the vendors, et cetera, and then whatever's left. It works if those rates are going up. It does not work if those rates are not in keeping with gross domestic product in the way that you establish rates as outlined by the commission.
Let me add one comment. Sorry. The scope of today's hearings is on what's got us here, not necessarily how we get out of it. So you can go down the path. We just need to keep it a little bit narrow if possible, because our job here today is find what the system is providing currently. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, sir. What's the generation source of the power that Holly Springs receives? Is it gas-fired plant? It's nuclear? What is that source?
No source of power.
It's TVA.
But the power is being generated by a natural gas facility, nuclear. What is the power source?
All of the
Hydro.
above.
All of the
It's
above.
all
It's
the
all of the above.
They have nuclear, hydro. Yeah, TVA has that.
So at the current rates that you charge, if you go up 8%, what is that going to yield you?
That according to TVA, it would be the difference in what has, or put us.
In dollars.
To the point, what's it, 2 million a month?
You gotta take a calculator out to
Yeah.
find this. Because at this point, we're calculating
I think in
dollars.
round numbers, it brings in 2 million a month. So 2 million a month plus, times 8% would be the increase. You follow
$2
me?
million at 8%.
HSUD generates $2 million a month, roughly. And so that 8% increase would be,
$16,000?
no, I think
$160
per month.
So you would need, in order to get to, and on your utility side of the business, not the geo side, on the utility side,
Yes, sir.
what's your ability to raise rates and bond out, and for how long? Could you meet your abilities to solve your problems?
Right. Number one, we do have some capacity. That's a clear answer. The second part of that, without having the specifics in the setting, I just don't feel
Well,
comfortable.
give me the specific answers that you can provide, and a rough answer that you may not be able to legally be held to, but that you can at least have a general sense of what your ability could be.
We know that the capacity of what the increase would be, because that's a specific that I have. As far as the geo bond, because of the complexity
Not
of
the
it,
geo
I don't
bond,
want-
your
I mean,
ratepayer bond.
Right. I don't, and I'm mixing the terms, I apologize, but the ratepayer bond is something that we've asked for specific information from our experts on, and I don't have that information.
We need to fire those experts. If they can't give you, if they can't tell you how much money you can borrow.
Well, no, they can, so it's not a thing that a question about, but we put that request out recently is what I'm saying, so.
Well, if they can't provide you a general sense for this hearing right now, the only thing that's gonna save your ability, you can say that you are willing. This document says that you are unable and unwilling to serve your customers.
Right.
Your ability to articulate your ability and willingness today will probably determine if you maintain your system. So if they're employed by you and cash a check from you, they need to answer that question right now.
Well,
If somebody needs to step out the room to do that,
right.
we need to know your ability right now.
Okay.
So my next question is, what is your current per kilowatt hour rate?
Okay.
As they get that answer, we'll move on to the next one. What is your estimated usage as a system today? How much power are your customers using today?
It was roughly $2 million a month.
Not the dollars, the usage, the how many kilowatts, how much power are you using?
I have to look that up.
Speak to your emergency management plan. They spoke of not having an emergency management plan with the administration that they were not able to communicate with. You are here now, you've served in both capacities. Obviously, you were shielded from being able to communicate with us or them with previous leadership. What would you have answered the questions that they gave if you were given the ability to answer them? Specifically, we'll start with the emergency management plan.
Well, we do not have a written emergency management plan at this time. We just recently went through a tornado back in April in the northern part of Marshall County, the Sladen area, going into Tennessee, and that had an effect of between 1.5 and $2 million to actually the cost of restoring the power and the estimates of, as far as labor is concerned and materials that I turned in to the Mississippi Emergency Management and FEMA, that it was determined that we didn't meet the threshold, but so that caused, we don't have a written emergency management plan, so we do the best we can in responding, bringing in outside help. We had DeSoto Electric in, one company, SEC was in to help us recover at that time for that for that the disaster of the tornado. However, we don't have a written emergency management plan, and that is something that during the past year that I had asked for, or to establish that, get a consultant. We need to get a consultant to establish an emergency management.
Let's make a little softer question. What are your lockout and tag out procedures?
The lockout, I know what the lockout tag out procedure is, but I haven't done it there. And there is no established lockout tag out procedure at the utility department.
You're not making the case here.
I'm being honest.
I know, but I need you to be honest. But that's a step forward. Honesty is definitely a step forward. Talk about your preventive maintenance plan. I'm chipping away at everything that they said that gave them the recommendation to give you the ability to chip back or offer information to balance it out, because they weren't able to talk. Am I getting this right? You all weren't able to.
We actually did.
You did?
We interviewed them.
Okay.
We had a day and a half to talk to selected HSUD employees, including the general manager and some operations folks and some office folks. So we did talk to them. What the problem was is getting started. We were put off.
Oh, the delay.
With all that delay in the beginning, but we did get documents, and we did have a day and a half with some employees.
I don't want to set all the time. I know other
I just
commissioners got
want to ask
questions.
another question, follow up on Commissioner Stamp. So your utility bills have not been consistently coming every month. As the gentleman said, it may be 6 months, 3 months, and then they're all at one time. So as the funds are coming in, what account are they going into? How is that being allocated just strictly for the utilities versus what the general budget is? Because my understanding, they're not supposed to be commingled. I think that's a state law.
Well, the funds, our funds are supposed to be commingled. The electric funds are supposed to stay separate from the sewage, gas, and water funds. That's a TVA requirement. Okay, so the electric funds go in when they generate it, or they're received. They go into the electrical account. Okay, and then we have our accounting procedures that separate those funds for each business. Does that answer your question?
I do have according to the TVPPA report, Mr. Perry, you said that the rate increase would have been 8%.
That's right.
According to the TVPPA report, had the HSUD followed the average rate of growth of other LPCs over the past 15 years, its rates would have been roughly 16% higher than today. The city's unwillingness to implement normal increases was unexplained. So what's the discrepancy there between 8 and 16?
That is the recommended. And what I'm saying is I asked the question of what would get us on the right track that wouldn't be 16. I was trying to make sure that if there was going to be an implementation of a rate increase, that it would be bare bones. And that's what the average is, 16%. So I was not trying to. That was a question that was after the report was issued.
Again, I'm not advocating rate increases.
Yeah, I understand that, but that was the difference.
But to say that 16% would be needed to triage the system and maintain it, but we're still talking 8, which indicates that we, even with those movements, would still not be enough to maintain or fix the system.
Right.
And I think that is what Commissioner Stamps is talking about as well. It's like, it's the ability or the willingness. And I'm not speaking for Commissioner Stamps, but the willingness is also the expertise. And so that's not passing judgment on y'all now. What we're here is determine, is this system delivering reasonably adequate service to the citizens of HSUD? And I think that if I asked each one of you individually, the answer would all be the same. From this side of the room all the way across. The answer would be no. Now we can talk about why and where the new administration plans to go in the future. But what we're dealing with today is, are the people of Holly Springs Utility District receiving reasonably adequate service? And again, I would dare say that even from this room all the way across, if we read the report, if those that have read the report live in the district, and Mr. Jones, you trying to fix it, your team trying to fix it. To Mr. Suggs' point, there should be redundant services to know where the safety, number one, safety protocol, as Commissioner Carr and Commissioner Stamp said, to keep those linemen safe. There should be reports on outages so you know where to triage. And yes, nobody here has been on this job that long. We get that. But the track record of HSUD, 6 managers in 10 years, the lack of right-of-way clearing, all the things that have led us to where we're at, just reflects on how catastrophic the system is right now. And we know it's going to take millions and millions and millions of dollars to fix this system. And with the track record of HSUD, with the track record of mismanagement, the federal, the state, and others aren't going to throw a lifeline. So with that said, how does the city of Holly Springs make up that ground to have resilience that everybody that lives in HSUD deserves? That's not just the $1 million question, but the millions of dollar question. And so it does need to happen fast. I know that there's a lack. We meet with EPAs all around the state, and they have resources that you do not have. They just do. They have a system that is functioning and works. I've been inside some of these operations, and they have a computerized system that tracks where the hotspots are. They track exactly where the outages are. They can dispatch their line crews instantly when they find an outage. You don't have that benefit.
They know before the citizen calls.
Yes.
They've already sent a truck out.
So when you see the operations side of that, and then the Silver Point reports show where HSUD is, it's no reflection on your linemen. It's no reflection on the small group, the small team you have trying to manage this beast. Problem is, we're at a point now where it can't be managed almost. To where to operate it function properly, that the neighboring systems even have. You know, I've been in the operations, and you walk in, the computer screens are all up, and they can track everything. They know everything that's going on in that system. So with what we've heard in the report, that the meters aren't working properly, that's causing revenue issues. Not maintained, all the things that have not been maintained have all built the case to where we're at today. Is that regardless of what happened in the past, the reality is HSUD is one of 153 in the TV PPA in the TVA Valley that has these issues. I think it was reported to us that TVA 70% of their complaints come from HSUD. So it's and I want everybody to understand that we are here as a collective, we will work hand in glove to try to fix this problem once and for all. And everybody benefits. Everybody will benefit. And I'll restate that. Everybody will benefit. Property values go up. Economic development comes. You have two major highways that go through. You have Highway 72 and I-22. Major thoroughfares in North Mississippi that are assets. But nobody will locate in those areas, or very few will choose to locate because of the past performance of HSUD. That hurts the city, that hurts the county, and it hurts everybody that lives in that district. And that's, again, no reflection on what you're trying to do. I think Commissioner Stamp's line of questions and Commissioner Carr and what the DBPPA report shows is that we are in a crisis now. And to try to turn the corner in incremental steps is going to be almost impossible. And I think with the lack of huge cash flows, to Commissioner Stamp's point, how much money can you bring to bear? Well, we don't know. Well, we know it's going to cost tens of millions of dollars. Tens of millions. Well, to save Holly Springs and this utility district, to have economic development happen right now, you can't wait 10 years to fix it. We can't wait 5 years to fix it. We need resiliency as tomorrow. And I know that's going to be difficult, but it's going to take leadership, it's going to make hard decisions. And it's going to take making those decisions that benefit the people of the city and the HSUD, even though it may not be popular. And not to get on the soapbox, but that's how passionate that I think all of us are. And I know we tend to draw some battle lines, if you will. But again, I'll restate, I think we all want the same thing. So our goal here is to make sure that HSUD is no longer one of 153. That the people of this district get the power delivery that they deserve. Without the spikes, without ruining their appliances, without having outages on blue sky days, without all these things. And our job is to figure out how we get there. I do think to today's discussion, is HSUD providing reasonably adequate service? No. And I'm not going to ask each one of us, but I do think that we all agree that that answer is no. Where do we go from here to make sure that we can have resiliency in a system that is going to function properly? That's the question. And as was stated by Ms. Favreau, the law doesn't give us a pathway. We've never been here. So we have to figure out a way to best serve the people in this room. That includes you, Mayor. That includes the alderman. Anybody that lives in that district includes all of you. And us, we have always said that we're Mississippi. If some of us are suffering, we all three want to help fix it. And I appreciate that about my colleagues. And we look at it that way. We heard what was going on up here, and we want to try to help fix it. And so, sorry to get on the soapbox. Commissioner Carr.
This is a question. Does the city have 500,000 in CDs?
Just in
Correct.
general. Yes.
Is the city looking to secure those CDs as a loan from a bank? No?
No.
That's reserved.
Okay. Well, so what is the city's payroll each month?
I apologize. Yeah. I was thinking from an HSUD standpoint. You're correct. Let me go back to that question. Yes. So I apologize. That's my fault.
Okay.
I had in mind HSUD as you're saying, city utility, and that's,
Yeah. So what is the city's payroll every month, roughly? Would it be between 300 and 310,000?
probably around 300. Okay.
Has the state auditor withheld funds,
Yes,
and how much is that?
$430,000.
And what's the reason for that?
Because the audits were not current. And
And when was those
state law,
audits, when did they ask y'all for those audits?
The audits.
That goes back to what Commissioner Stamps said.
Right.
Commissioner Stamps asked if they couldn't provide you that information, they've had since August the 13th.
Yeah, the auditor's office, right now, the current audit is at 2021. So, and so we don't have the audits from 22, 23, 24. Going back to that, to your point regarding the bond capacity for HSUD, the audits are interconnected. So HSUD can't go forward with its audit without the city's audit, and vice versa. So that's the issue with coming up with a precise number related to the bond capacity. So that,
So
and
who's
you
the holdup?
can't, and you
Who's the
can't
holdup
rough
in your
estimate
audits?
either. Sir?
Who's the holdup in your audits?
Well, and they've been filed,
They have been, yeah, the 21 has been finalized.
but not filed.
It has not.
Has it been filed?
I thought it had.
Okay.
And if it hasn't, it's on it's been finalized for HSUD and the city. And so they've gotten the information, and the audit firm says they can probably expedite a little bit faster on the ones now based off of having finally got the 2021 information together.
So what's the timeline for getting your audits up to date?
I don't have the timeline. It's my belief that they can do it probably within probably by the end of next year would be the more likely than not.
And there's always a lag with audits. Let me ask this question. What's the value of the certificate?
The value of the actual plant assets?
No, well, two things. You have a certificate,
Certificated area
a certificated area.
of service.
The certificate is more valuable than the grid because it gives control of the area to the people for the grid. So my next line of questions is about.
They don't necessarily own the assets, though. It's a permit. It's almost like a permission to drive a taxi cab in New York.
I understand that works.
You still,
So,
the city would still.
so my
own
first
it.
question, I'm trying to see because one of your recommendations is to sell the system. Okay, before you sell something, the first thing you need to assess is the value
Yes.
of what you're selling.
Right.
So my first question is, what is the value of the Holly Springs Utility District certificated ability to provide service?
I don't have any idea, but the actual physical assets that are used to.
We're not
serve-
get to this. I'm gonna get to that next. My first question
I don't
is.
know, but theoretically could have a value anything from 0 to many millions.
Of course.
If someone sees a value in that line of business, right now, that line of business looks like it requires a large investment, so does that have value? Unclear.
Well, that would be the grid, the reliability and serviceability of the power lines and power poles and substations and all of that. What I don't want to happen is for these folks who've been paying forever, however long this system has been there, they've been contributing
Sure.
to a system. If some people take a short-sighted approach to the direction going forward, these people may not get the value in that transfer for what they have invested in the appropriate way. So my first question, and I'll give you all of them at the same time, somebody can go scratch on some paper and let me know this answer today. What is the value of the Holly Springs Utility District certificate, and what is the value of the grid? Because that's what we're negotiating here. We're negotiating two factors: our emotions and our disdain for the current state of the utility may take us one place, but I don't want these folks to be bamboozled because of their condition to auction away their asset at the inappropriate amount of money to someone else to charge them money for a system that they're gonna have to pay for back again.
You have a problem because you have people who are not of the city who have in their, paying their rates all these years?
Well, those people will be affected too. My point is that the whole grid, how much is the grid worth and how much is the certificate that the grid sits on top of worth? Because those citizens who are outside the city, they benefit from that grid. So if that sale is transferred, that means that if they don't get that number right, because at the end of the day, a entity that would take over this system would be given a number that they would be writing a check for. You wouldn't just give it to somebody for free.
Well, you're asking me a question I can't answer. There's physical assets, and then there's the value of being permitted to
Correct.
conduct business there.
Correct.
We certainly did not try to analyze anything like that. That's a complicated question. I don't have an answer for you. I'm just trying to make the point that the people outside the city have been funding the city.
No, you're answering the wrong
Okay.
question. What I'm saying is, whether you're outside the city or inside the city,
Right?
you're still a ratepayer
Yes.
in a certificated area to fund a grid that the city owns the grid, but the people inside the system will be asked to pay an amount of money. What I'm saying is, if they're gonna be absorbing, let's go with the high number, the high watermark, $110 million. No private entity is going to give anybody $110 million. That $110 million is gonna come from the folks in this room. So my point I'm trying to say is, if there is a transfer of ownership for this utility, whoever gets it will own it in perpetuity forever. The folks that are ratepayers need to have a return on investment of what the system that they're paying for is worth, and to move forward. I'm sure you follow what my
I
line is, right?
just can't answer the value. I just don't know.
So would it be your recommendation? I see you say here that a feasibility study is urged to explore alternatives. Are you recommending that an answer to that question be attained before any step be made to go forward?
No, I think we have to understand what the important questions are, start to get some answers to some of those. For example, what level of investment would be needed by a new owner? We're just throwing numbers out based on guesses.
So you're throwing numbers out, they're throwing numbers out.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, what was your question? I'm just saying, we didn't conduct a system study to truly know what would be required.
Well, your recommendation is that we do that.
Some form of that, so you could start to assess what the best possible paths are and whether receivership is better.
Why do you recommend that receivership is not a better option?
Our instinct is that to find an entity willing to take on this level of challenge was not something you're gonna find many people willing to step up to do.
No, but answer that question. Why do you feel that receivership is not the best answer?
Because finding someone to take over and turn around a system and then not owning it afterwards, or having the possibility of not owning it, is not clear why anyone would want to.
Let me ask it a different way. What do you define receivership to be?
This is when, maybe you can speak better to that.
Yeah,
It
I think
happens.
what she's saying is that, okay, so if we were to petition the Chancery Court for receivership, and we presumably would have somebody in mind that would be willing to do the job, come in and run the utility and get it going the right way. The problem with that is, to get it going the right way, it's gonna take this massive investment by this receiver, and they're not gonna want to do that without keeping the system. And under the receivership statute, the judge has the possibility of returning it to the city. And she's saying finding an entity to do that would be seemingly pretty hard to find someone that would want to take it over, put their money into it, and then have it be given back to the city. So that's, I guess, there's where she's at. She's saying that would be that maybe there's another option besides receivership, or we could find somebody in the city would be willing to sell their system to someone else. And the
No,
system,
but-
I guess that's.
So if the recommendation is not to go to court, appoint a receiver,
Right.
then that receiver would have, if a receivership is the pathway forward, what would the abilities of a receiver? That would be an individual, kind of like what's happening in Jackson with Ted Hennepin, who has the ability to raise rates, make decisions, and go out to the capital markets on behalf of what they have received to solve a problem.
Yeah, I think, yes, but I mean, I'm thinking that, I think what they're proposing is that we, rather than just zone in on the receivership idea, is to maybe open this up for like when they say feasibility study, just look at what the options are available to us. Like, is there something else that makes more sense? I mean, maybe that is the way that the commission ultimately decides to go. That's y'all's call. But the idea or the recommendation that Silver Point's making is that maybe rather than just jumping straight there, we just look and see what other options are available that maybe get us more reliable service more quickly.
I'm gonna add something Commissioner Stamps is saying. In theory, what Commissioner Stamps is saying is that the certificated area is worth a certain amount. We don't know what it's worth because it's the ability to provide service in that area. So, in theory, a company says, "Hey, I want that opportunity to grow that area. I will invest my money, my capital, and I will invest to grow this area." They go to the city of Holly Springs and say, "Hey, we want the ability to do that. We'll take on the debt, we'll take on all the liabilities, and we will pay you to let us do this." If that's an option, I don't know of anybody in this room that would disagree with that. Company comes to theoretical. A company comes and says, "We're going to wipe y'all's debt clean. We're going to take on the system and we're going to triage it. And we're going to make it better. We're going to invest our money in it. In return, we're going to be able to serve this whole area." So they bet on the future.
Right.
I think that's what he's trying to say.
That would be a sale, though, right?
Correct.
But before you get to that, reason is there may be value in the certificate that could be utilized to triage the system before you raise the rates on the people in the grid to pay $100 million.
Commissioner, you're absolutely right. But the value of a certificate is going to be an intangible number.
Correct.
Not one we can really put a number on. It would be, the Supreme Court has said that a certificate is a property right. It's a property right. So it certainly has value. But the number that would be assigned to it would just be however much it was worth to an entity to serve within that area.
Correct.
And that would be something for the parties to hash out.
And, the service area was how many square miles?
1,600.
1,900 square miles. So the ability to serve power in a 1,900 square mile area has an intrinsic value. If we look at what that value is, we may be able to find a pathway forward without having to get $110 million out of the ratepayers' pockets, but get it out, a portion of it. I don't know what that number is, but I'm trying to go through a list of possible solutions based on our office's research of how to go forward before we just abruptly do something and then before the stock exchange owns this daggum utility system, and now these ratepayers are subjected to whatever the Dow Jones is doing this month. And when there used to be a control value. So my next question is, what is the value of this system to the city of Holly Springs? Because if the city of Holly Springs can now articulate its willingness and ability to maintain this asset, that will tell us
It's
what
huge
direction.
value. There's been valuations previously.
Right.
I think the last one was in the million, but it did not go into the certificated value.
Right.
I think a $32 million value, more or less, at some point was established, but that was, I think, years ago. So I say this, for this setting, I would not be comfortable saying this is what our value is without having, number one, the engineering study to at least establish it, because the value to us would be whatever it is established based off of what the engineers say that we can, I mean, that what it would cost if those rates are increased, et cetera, what the value is based on that, based on the certificate, the certificated area, because that has a value to whomever we enter into an agreement to sell it to. And to go to the analysis that are based on the taxi cab certificates in New York, that, you know, you have a car that costs $20,000, but that certificate costs $200,000.
That's right.
So that value is high. So, but for this space, I can throw out a number. I don't think it.
A few seconds, actually.
Keep him up there. I had to ask you.
You still can't talk.
Mr. Perry?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, I assumed we filled the city's rebuttal portion of the.
So I apologize.
That's okay. I assume do y'all have anything else to add before we go into public comment?
One clarity point as far as that. I think that the mayor and the GM spoke to whether or not the city was providing adequate utilities, and the answer to that is it's not meeting the goals and expectations necessarily. Anytime you have issues with outages, anytime you have an issue with the ability for individuals to express their concerns and get those concerns redressed timely. But and I am a legalist. From a legal standpoint, by the definition of providing adequate services, that the utility department is doing that. They're providing the electricity, the gas, et cetera. They're meeting that, but they're not meeting what the goal of the city and the utility department should be.
Does that complete your rebuttal?
And no,
Okay,
well,
sorry.
I wanted to make that that clarification that we're, I guess in closing or as a rebuttal to the points that were raised, we had accept the admonishment from the commission, as the commissioner pointed out earlier regarding leading, following, getting out of the way. Understand that, but in this particular time, the people sitting before you, to my right and to my left has been in his job for roughly 12 plus months, and to my right has been in his job for 60 days. As far as open engagement with TVA and TVPPA, we've tried to do that. I have impressed upon the GM the necessity to put together a plan that we provide to them as far as trying to come into compliance as far as paying the arrearages and being sure that at least going forward we would have the ability to do so. To Commissioner Stamp's point regarding at this time bond capacity, et cetera, once again, I'm the legal person for this table. We've employed government consultants to try to get us that data. They can't give a rough estimate for several liability reasons, but one of the things is without having at least the most current year audit current, they can't. You just can't do it. So with that in mind, we have asked our auditors to try to expedite and get those audits as fast as possible. Some of the information or the issues with it, to be honest with the city, was the fact that to get the city audit in place, you had to have the utility audit. Mm-hmm. And to rectify that, and this is no forum to try to say, issues, but we thought that we were going to redress that issue with getting somebody in place to do, number one, the consultants that would be necessary, and number two, to get the manpower in place to be able to have the competence to make those types of get that type of information and provide it to the people that are the outside auditors coming in. And so they have done that as of right now. The current person that works in the finance portion or the accounting portion for the utility department works in careful compliance with a person that has been a consultant at the recommendation of TVA. And so those are steps that are small right now, but they have been relatively fast from the new administration. Also, as it relates to trying to be able to get on point with the finding out, I guess from a 1, 2, 3, 4 standpoint of what we need to do going forward to make things better, we have engaged a company that is familiar with these type of municipal utilities, and they are on board with getting us what I call a criticality, just what are the critical places that we need to be able to rectify the problem that has been there, and how can we provide for the citizens going forward. Those are the types of things that in a short period of time that we've done. But to be fair and to be clear, and I know that this is going to be something that will come back with a pretty strong commentary from different individuals, and rightly so. To turn this type of a ship around is going to take more than just saying, oh, we can make this quick turn. It's going to take a time frame that would be reasonable for the city to do it, and it's pursuant to the statute. I respectfully disagree with the concept that right now has to be the date, that there has to be this, that, or the other that has to go forward. That's different as far as the city having the ability to rectify that. Number one, it's not practical. You just can't, nobody is going to invest in that type of utility district based off of how it is right now in a way that's going to be feasible for a return or give a feasible return to the people that have invested into that system. Things like certificate amounts or certificate value, those things have to be determined, and it takes a period of time to make those determinations. The ability to make the capital investment based off of the possibility of bonds and those types of things have to be able to be determined. Now, what we are suggesting, or what I'm respectfully suggesting, is a reasonable time frame, but with benchmarks for reporting to the commission and being able to say, hey, this is what we've done for this 5-month or 6-month increment. These are the changes that have been made. These are the amount of issues that have been reported to TVA during this time frame, where the commission looks at it and says, look, they are doing what they said they're going to do. They're going to make these incremental changes and do it over pursuant to the recommendations of professionals as well as the recommendations of TVPPA, and to see whether or not we are making our bill payments timely. Are we getting the bills out to the individuals timely? And have we made the recommendations or implemented the recommendations that are pursuant to this report? I think that we have the ability to do that, but it's going to take a time frame that's reasonable. I think a 24-month time frame would be a reasonable time frame. It's the only thing that's realistic if it is with 6-month benchmarks. And I think that those benchmarks, be it me providing a report or whomever providing a report to whatever entity to the commission's benefit, I think that's a reasonable way of trying to approach this. But I do think that we do need, a time frame that is reasonable, and it's pursuant to the statute that if this commission finds that you're not satisfied with what has been, thus far, that then you say, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to do as a utility department. You need to be able to rectify this within that reasonable time frame. That's what the statute imposes, and that's what we're asking, that we have that ability.
Does that complete your closing remarks?
It does.
Okay.
It does.
Thank you, Mr. Now, we'll move into the public comment section. We did have a sign-in sheet that I have here. I am going to take some leniency and try to, there are some experts in the room, or were, if you want to add any color to what's been said. Mr. Peters, TVPPA, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't think so.
Mr. Peters is.
Findings with that report. Let me come up with, or
Yeah, if you can, just kind of stand up,
Tom's
project.
findings with the Silver Point report were very consistent with what we found when we worked together on the first report. I don't really have a lot to add. Other than this, there's been a lot of talk about money and time and how fast. If you're going to talk about rebuilding substations, lead times on some of those pieces of equipment, I think Tom will bear this out, are now 3 to 5 years. So in addition to the money, it's going to take some time just to get purchases and some of that equipment in. So just keep that in mind as you move forward.
We have Derek McGill and Case Knight and Sharon Williams from TVA. You have any input? Do they still have? No comment. Okay. Mr. Morris from AG's office, do you have any comments?
No comment other than, this is a very important issue for the state of Mississippi, for the city of Holly Springs, and I'm very optimistic. I think there's a bright future ahead, and I think if we all work together, I think we can come up with something great.
Thank you. As those of you who don't know, that our Attorney General is actually from Holly Springs. Next, we have two more that are, we have Representative Faulkner, you want to say? Okay. Senator Whaley, any comments?
Where would you like me to stand?
Wherever you can project. Just right there.
First off, I'd like to thank all three of the commissioners for coming today. Commissioner Brown, the work that you have put into this, as well as your staff, Commissioner Stamps, Commissioner Carr, cannot thank you how much I appreciate you on behalf of myself and as the constituents that I represent, as well as that you represent. I also like to get through a few other little things. I'd like to thank Chief Robertson and his officers for coming in today. Great job. I appreciate y'all's show of support. Also saw the mayor of New Albany. Appreciate him being here as well as the general manager of New Albany Light, Gas, and Water. So I appreciate those guys. And I appreciate the mayor and the board of aldermen for coming in and being willing to talk and willing to deal with us now as we try to get through this situation, as it is not a new situation. This is one that we have been dealing with for years and years and years. And I will acknowledge that this is not the mayor's doing, but the mayor has stepped in and now he's responsible for it. And I think he knows that. He's not running from that. And I've known him for a long time. He's a good man. And I look forward to continuing to work with him. However, I do not work for the city of Holly Springs. I work for the constituents who elect me and who have sent me to Jackson. A lot of those are the constituents that are sitting behind me, the ones that are sitting on the other end of the television watching this, or the ones that are going to watch it later because they're at work today. I work for them. I'm not disconnected from that fact, and I will always work for them. The bottom line is that this system is in a situation of disarray, and we have got to do something. We cannot continue to go down the path that we are on. And I heard some very good litigation today, some very good lawyer, and I'll acknowledge that. You lay out a good plan of kicking the can down the road, and I understand that, but that's not the way we need to go. I come from the business world, just as many of you do. Come from the business world, just as many of you do. If we don't do it, it doesn't get done. And that's one of the things in government that bothers me the most, is that we continuously kick the can down the road and we don't do anything. We've got to get away from that. We have people who are suffering. We have people who are hurting. Economic times are hard. We have got to do better. Customers who constantly deal with outages, low voltage, they problems getting their bills, problems with low voltage, problems with utilities, with appliances in their homes being torn up from these problems, that's just that side. You look at Marshall County. I'm from Marshall County, and I'm proud to be from Marshall County. You look at the area outside of the Holly Springs Utility District, and you see growth. You see movement, whether it be economic or whether it be housing. You cross that imaginary line where the Holly Springs Utility Department starts, and you see it stop. That is a problem. I talk to developers, and they say, try having so many lots in the Holly Springs Utility Department area. You can't sell them. That's not made up. That is true. We are seeing an opportunity for Marshall County to explode and to grow, and it's being hampered. The city is holding back the growth of the county, and we cannot allow that any further. It's holding back the growth of the state. We cannot allow that any further. Our schools have to miss and turn out early because they don't have power. Our financial institutions have to shut down because of no power. Businesses have to close early because they have no power. That is money out of their pockets. Just recently we saw a situation, several days where power was out, a specific section of the area. Restaurants closed, businesses closed. That's money that they can't get back. And they can't stand it, and they can't take it anymore. You've got to do better. You've got to realize you're holding these people hostage, and it's not right and it's not fair. They do not have an opportunity to vote or elect anyone here. They are being represented by people who do not care about them as long as the bill is paid. Now, that is what has happened in the past, and I think that you all are better than that, and I will acknowledge that. These people need help. You need to realize it. I have said it before that I am tired of dealing with this situation because elected officials cannot listen to the people around them telling them what they need. We heard earlier that you're not asking what we need. They're telling you what they need. You need to listen to them. Stop being disconnected. Listen to the people who are talking to you. They are hurting. They are suffering. It's not right and it's not fair. I'm begging you to please come to the table and realize that this is a situation that you have inherited that you cannot work yourself out of. We do not have the money. If you do not have the money to pay for it right now, then you are over your head. And there is nothing wrong with saying that you are over your head. Let's call some people to the table that can get the job done and help us, and let's move forward. I talked to an individual just the other day, a large agricultural enterprise. The power went out while he was home in the middle of the night. Power trip, generator did not come on. Lost 60,000 dozen eggs. That's a pretty substantial loss. And this is not the first time that it has happened, and unfortunately, it's not going to be the last. But we can get ourselves on a road to where it doesn't continuously happen. I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you all. I look forward to the opportunity to continue to meet with you all. And let's find a resolution of this. Thank you.
Thank you. But next, we got the so next we're going to, and I'll make some comments on that, and we're not going to belabor the point where everybody wants to get done with it. But one of my friends is in the room, and he invested in the Holly Springs Utility District, building a house. He was told it's going to take 6 months to get the power connected. So even though we're investing in the community, which we appreciate that, again, those things are headwinds to development. Second thing I'll say, a friend of mine is a regional manager for Walmart, and he pointed out the store here had substantial outages multiple times a year where they had to clean out all their frozen items and all the goods in the freezer frozen section and throw it in the dumpster. Well, businesses add that to the cost, right? So your Walmart costs go up based on those outages and those losses. So everybody shares in that. But just two kind of comments to add to Senator Whaley's remarks. First up on the public comment list is Mark Bullock.
So I think I'm quite well known in this crisis. I'm going to give Commissioner Stamp some answers to some of his questions from earlier on that Mr. Jones couldn't provide. On an average year, HSUD purchase about 250,000 megawatt hours of power from TVA. That's based on EIA data, which is a legal requirement they have to supply each year. The current residential kilowatt hour is 0.11837 with a standing customer charge of $12.21 per month. So just two simple bits of data. We've all heard the can being kicked down the road. I've dealt with Senator Whaley now for 3 years, I think. Dealt with Commissioner Brown for almost as long. And one thing that I've been doing is mapping outages. So there is data. There has been since January 2023. What we're seeing right now based on the outage group is an average increase per year of about 227% in outages. Restoration times have gone from a few hours to days.
Yeah.
So for instance, this is a new administration. In the last, since Mayor Terry's been in office, there has been a grand total of 263 outages in 60-odd days. In one day, there was 68 outages within that service area. As each outage occurred, this is what the data's showing us. This is not me saying it. The outage area was growing by 20 square miles per outage that day. That's how bad it's getting. On top of that, the report's wrong on certain data. The service area is actually 536 square miles, and it's got 1,673 miles of line. People are sick and tired of it. The surges have cost Holly Springs utility customers in the last year alone, based on marketing data and marketing trends, which is publicly available data, about $8.6 million in new appliances, air conditioners per year. That's not me saying that. That is publicly available marketing data from Amazon, Walmart. You know, it's out there. Yet these people don't seem to care. They really don't. I mean, we've got 3 aldermen that have now been in office 5 years nearly. And yet it's been the same answer. It's Gibson's fault. It's no longer Gibson's fault. This wasn't Gibson's mess to start with. We've all acknowledged the fact it's been going on decades. Based on my research, this stems back to about 1971. And it's been getting progressively worse every year. And then we have a situation where GMs are coming in who are just there to get their highest 4 years for their state pension. And Mr. Jones even said that himself. When he initially went through the negotiation stages, he said, I want $125,000 a year for the next 4 years guaranteed, so my state pension when I retire is adequate. That's on public record. That's why he didn't get the job until Commissioner Stamps made it known that the aldermen were in violation of their rules, and then within 2 weeks, Mr. Jones gets the job. If you track everything, there is data to prove this. And like Commissioner Stamps asked, what is the value of the grid? What's the value of the certified area? Not one expert can give an answer, apparently. 2 decades ago, I think it was, someone did put an offer in of about $33 million for the certified area. Right now, based off a different assessment to these guys, if Holly Springs were to try and sell that grid, they would have to pay the purchaser $43 million. Repairs, right away alone. These reports are a snapshot of what's really going on. They come in for 2 to 3 weeks. I think when Mr. Suggs was there the first time with TV PPA, you only did 35% of the grid. Just 35% of the grid was enough to cause this committee to say, it stops and it stops now. So when you extrapolate that on a wider area, on the entire service area, your right-of-way clearing is actually more close to $40 million because over 85% of the right-of-ways are overgrown. The closer you get to city limits, the better it is. Again, all this has been mapped. TVA's had the maps. I've sent them to them. And the linemen do have active outage maps. I make sure of that. For the last 3 years, I have literally given up Christmases, birthdays, time with my loved ones, to literally make sure the linemen are equipped and these people know what's going on. Where these people, providing they get their pilot payment each year, they don't seem to care. And the simplest change, like communicating with the customer base. When Mayor Terry came in, we had a conversation on the phone, and I said, Mayor Terry, you need to tell me when there's an outage, because sometimes I don't monitor the outage group. Not a problem, Mark, I'll get the information to you. Unless it involved the city limits or 1 mile outside, I didn't get notified. I've got the text, and in fact, at one point, the only way I was getting notifications was from the city's own text system. So they do have the capabilities to inform the customer base. They have had for nearly 12 months. They just do not utilise their resources. I've spoke to GM Wayne Jones at the tornado restoration efforts, because I helped the Sheriff's Department map the disaster area. I actually mapped it. Mr. Jones was nowhere to be seen for 4 days because he was behind the big house tour. I get the significance of that, but when you've got 128 square miles of your service area ripped to shreds because of a tornado, you need to be, your priority should be the customer base, not a tour which is going to happen next year as well. You know, $1.5 million, I think he said earlier on, to restore that part of the grid. But yet, I've seen him at the MEMA meeting where state and local officials walked out of because they couldn't reinforce to him the significance of what he needed to do. That was 5 days after the disaster. I've had a news crew tell me that when Mr. Jones did this whole big publicity stunt where New Albany Light, Gas and Water came in on the first day, but then were turned around by Mayor Gibson, he went and approached the news crew dressed in a straw hat and some funny-looking clothes. The rest of his line crews, I know for a fact, have been out since 4 or 5 in the morning because I've been with them. We're all working out the Sladen Travel Centre. But yet he was nowhere to be seen at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Nowhere. The only reason these people get information is because of the HSUD outage group I set up. We have now 25% of the entire customer base on there. And it's growing by the day because it's getting worse and worse. It's like the AMI system they're all talking about. The AMI system that Holly Springs have actually bankrupted GE metering systems in Europe because it doesn't work. It never has done. The trillion transceivers don't work. They haven't. Holly Springs could have had enough repeaters to cover half of Mississippi, and it would still never have worked. Check Ofgem. You can see on there, Ofgem fined GE metering systems in Europe and the UK $158 million because customers' bills were grossly overestimated and they knew it was a problem. So the regulator bankrupted them. That's teeth. That's the teeth you guys need now because we're all suffering. And 2 years, well, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Because, as you've all pointed out, this is going to bankrupt the city. This is going to impact 38,000 people over 500 square miles for years to come. That will be your legacy if this doesn't get sorted. That will be their legacy. You know, Commissioner Brown, we've had some very good conversations, and I've got the utmost respect for you. You've always said to me that you're going to get this sorted. I feel in the past that you've pushed and pushed and pushed, and you have got us answers. You've got us some sort of resolve. But now you need to find that last little bit of courage, along with the other board members. I think you've got it, to say to them, you haven't got 2 years. These people cannot last another 2 years. On an average outage, I get 136 messages from people who need oxygen, begging me to save their lives. I do not work for the city. I do not work for the state. That's his job, not mine. But they can't get through to him. He blocks people's numbers. The mayor, I don't know if he takes his calls or not anymore. You try and phone the utility department during an outage, it's hit and miss if you can get in touch with them. Genuinely. You try and get your bill sorted. I've had people send me copies of their bills where they owe $25,000. I've got a utility department worker on recording at a person's house, along with a TVA representative, admitting that for at least the last decade, Holly Springs have been altering the meter readings manually because they can on the back end. When they put the meter on the base station, the internal microchip, which cannot be altered, was reading a different number to what the billing was saying. And it was a big number. I'm talking $6,000 difference. And that person on their property, I think they had 7 meters. And every single one of them was the same. They were grossly overestimated. We're being bankrupted financially and morally by an EP leadership and the old boy network. And that's the real truth of it. You know, 6 GMs, you look at their track records. Okay, Mr. Jones may have a utility background in the sense of fiber optics, but laying a fiber optic line to run in a power grid is 2 different things. My background is in the British Army. I spent 13 years of my life in the British Army, fighting all over this bloody world. I had to learn this in a matter of weeks. Seriously. 3 years ago, I worked with the restoration crews. Every time they came in, I still do to this day. On average, I think in the last 3 years, I've devoted nearly 7,000 hours of my time to sort this problem out. I can no longer do that because this has taken a psychological toll on me that you will never understand. I've seen my best mate blown to bits, but people begging me for their lives and I physically can't help them anymore, it's got to stop. Because if not, I'll start forwarding the calls to you guys. And you tell me how you will react. The linemen get the same. But the management don't care. So you need to make a difference today. Not 2 years, today. Because if not, Holly Springs will cease to exist in the next 18 months. Thank you.
Next we have Buck Bailey.
Yeah, I'm past, my patience is gone. I don't even know how to put in words how I feel. The biggest thing that hit me in the head in this meeting was when the general manager of the Holly Springs Utility Department couldn't tell this panel how much he charges per kilowatt. All right, the gentleman to your left asked a question that I've been hollering about. Where's the money go? The biggest thing is, I knew it was much. They're taking in at least $2 million a month. Where's that going? It obviously ain't going fixing stuff. They're running around putting out fires with 2 people. I just talked to a lineman yesterday that said he don't know what's going on, that half of them's done quit, and they've only got 2 service crews. 2. Now, it gets back down to another thing. I remember sometime or another in what little schooling I've had that there was a time in our history where there was a violent uprising over taxation without representation. I live out of town. I have to live by what the city of Holly Springs, for some unknown reason, continuously votes in incompetent, if not bogus, crooks. And I've got to deal with it. And I can't do anything about it. All I've heard from this crew was, well, we want to work with everybody, we want to do this, that, and the other. I hadn't heard anything from these people. Nothing. The only news I get about the power and when it's coming on and what the problem is from this guy, TV, the local TV. We don't hear nothing from these people. How are they even reaching out to me to find out what I need? And I don't know. And now, on my final part of, politicians and lawyers has been talking this up, meetings, talking this up. Oh, we got, nothing ever gets done except kick down the road.
That's right.
The state guy, he talks to the store, he sees it all, and it's horrible, we're going to do something. What has the state done? We hear that the state ain't going to give us no money. One, because we're not a big enough voting group, I guess. I don't know. You guys, your predecessor, fired us all up, we took pictures, we sent in, we done all of this stuff, and when it come down to him meeting with the mayor, he walks out the office and makes the announcement to us that I can't do a damn thing. And no more word from him. Now, we didn't know he was running for governor, but everybody here is scared the same thing is gonna happen here. We've done all of this, we waited month after month after month for some stupid meetings that everybody knew in the beginning. This audit was great, but they pretty well said the same thing 2 years ago in the previous audit. Nothing was ever done. It got to one point in my dealing with this, I wondered, why do we have a public service commission? What did they do? They obviously ain't helping me. Now, they might now, but it's time for us to do something, and I'm scared of what's gonna happen to begin with. If they walk out of here and give this back to these people, it ain't gonna be a pretty picture.
I know that.
And I hate that it has come to that. These people may say they have a good intention, but the whole city of Holly Springs and that group of people don't have a track record. And most of them have been in some kind of management or something in the thing. But there's too many questions they can't or won't answer that'll give you any hope in this system. Why the state, the governor can't call this a national disaster and come in and fix it like they did the water in Jackson. That all of a sudden, because all of the politicians and lawyers involved in it lived in Jackson. They got that water fixed within a month. Nobody lives here. Come here and stay. And feel like what it's 6 hours with no power and it's 95 degrees out there. You know, I burned up 2 generators and I quit counting the appliances. I have a pretty good background in electronics. And every one of the things that I've lost, including the brand new freezer last week, was because of a spike that come down and blew my capacitors out of it. That's common current. I mean, I turned in my thing, I've turned in 100 of them. I have yet to meet anybody that's gotten paid for the appliances they left. A bunch of them got, I've been waiting 2 years. So we don't have any recourse other than move. I have land here, I was born and raised here. I can't move. But I don't know how much longer I can live in this circus. Thank you for letting me.
Next, we have Roscoe Stigger. Finally, sorry.
How everybody doing?
I was getting to you.
Oh, anyway, I just hold it. Just like to thank everybody for coming out. But I want to start from last year when the power was out in Jackson. And the gentleman come up from Jackson, everybody come to the Ashland up there and met with him. And he talked and talked. And when he got through, he said, and I have nothing against people's on assistance. He said, if you're on assistance, you can get some help. You know, go and do this and this. The rest of you can't. The lady said, well, what about I lost all my food? I'm at work, 8 days, and the power and stuff like that. He said, well, I can't help you. Well, what did he come up there for? He didn't do nothing waste people's time. So we go now, fast forward, and we have these issues. Like I built the house. Took me a year to get one pole put up. One pole now. My neighbor, the same thing. So gentleman next door to me said, well, run it over here. Then I've been another year waiting to build. I'm out in Michigan City, out in the country, I'm quite a ways from there. But it's Hollow Spring, bill. Then I get the light. One at the street, next door neighbor get one here. Okay? It's been on my bill, not much, $9 and something, but it's been on there. Well, June was a year, so now what, it's 14 months? Going on 15 months? They said we have to investigate. What does it take for somebody to drive out there and look and say, okay, this address goes to this and that one goes to that? Okay, but we say to people in the office doing the job, and I don't want nobody to lose their job. I mean, everybody needs their job. But what are we truly doing when it comes to the customer? Now I get my bill after 3 months, even though I keep paying, because I know I can't pay it all at once. I keep paying. It says 65 days, we read it. 65 days, okay. Next time they ain't read it, nothing. Well, who are all the people that's supposed to be scheduled to read your meters? This is what we want on the lower end. Read our meters, let us know. So if you got this money coming in for 3 months, what do you got going out for 3 months? Now you got your surplus. Where it's going? Here, here, and here. And your future money. Then they'll say, okay, we don't have that, or we spent it. What about the interest on it? We don't know. Now we want some more money. We want to raise it 8%. But you don't know where the other already been. You know what I'm saying? Then my daughter-in-law, she lose 2 TVs. Her mother loses, deep freeze and refrigerator. And then no food, no nothing. They just got to replace because they're not on assistance. And I have nothing against, whatever. But all we're saying is, why is my bill, like my bill, December was $580, January $690, February $610, March, then it goes down to 5 something, and it stays around that. So now all you're doing is itemizing. I told them, I said, well, I need y'all to come out and reread it. Well, we didn't read the first time, so how can we come read it? What we got to go on? They said, well, we're trying to get these smart meters, trying and helping 2 different things. So what I'm going to do, go through winter this year again. So I'd rather go, I'm going to eat, I've been blessed. I'm not talking about that, I've been blessed. But I'm going to go here and look around the store, well, maybe I get this, maybe not, because I got to pay a $700 light bill. Well, I might get this. Well, this has dropped down to 4. So we shouldn't have to go through that. And I think, this is just me personally, I lived in Olive Branch. My bill was never over $300, never. Company, plenty of people's, whatever, big house, never. Now I come out here, my bill double. I'm like, wow, what are they doing? And they can't blame it all on cutting trees and burning bushes. That ain't. And you take that thing, go down there with that new machine, knock that stuff down. So where's the money at? Who itemizing this money? If you run your business at home like that, you're going to be bankrupt. So, as somebody on the lower scale, just send the people, have them to read the meters. You don't have enough people to read them. If your supervisor, ride your truck, you're getting free gas anyway, and see if these people stopping and reading these meters. You're getting free gas anyway. So why we can't just run the business like, I say, Olive Branch, Oxford. I talk to people all the time. They say, my bill is nothing like that. We got so many people moving from Ashland, out Benton County way, to Olive Branch, and these are the reasons they're moving. These are young people working that will be bringing in tax dollars. But now we losing. Ashland School, I started dating my wife from Tennessee back in 72. Okay, they got the same little school up there with the air conditioning in the window that's run down. What's this? It's 2025. What we gonna change with that? There's nothing out there for our kids unless we're there to push them and bag them and get them in there, and the scholarships and stuff. We're our roads. You go across, I'm on Meridian Road in 72. You go on the other side, it's bumped all the way down through there. Been that way for 30 years. What's happening? But everybody want to raise. Everybody says, well, I'm doing my job. You're doing your job, but are you checking on people? If I'm running a company, I'm running a restaurant, I got to come in there sometime and say, who's doing what? Is this clean, that clean? And the same thing when I rose. Who picking up the trash? They don't even cut the grass down 72, but twice a year anymore. Where all that money? Where those people? What they doing when they ain't cutting grass? See what I'm saying? What they doing? That's really all I got to say. But this winter, am I going to go from 700 light bill to 800-900? And then they want an 8% raise. That we need all this. Where the money at before? And they ain't the only one. Memphis did the same thing with my sister and them. They said they had money for 2021, but they need some more for 2024. But they didn't spend that. Well, where is it at? Spend this first before you go asking for something else. Tell us, we won't mind. Tell us, look, we did this with this. We had this coming in. We need to surplus this, not everything. We don't, they ride in pretty good, decent trucks down there. You know, they not in just, you know, and I go to church with some of the people that work there. But they said, we just go by the rules. Well, who's making the rules? Who's running it? You know, we need someone that's gonna run the operation. If not, get out of Branch or Oxford somebody. But I don't want nobody to lose their job. That's all I got to say.
Thank you very
They
much.
may, but I don't want them to lose. But I don't want to pay $1,000 light bill going to $700.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list, we have Lewis Elliott. Lewis Elliott.
Everything I've heard in the room, I'm sure everybody agrees with it. I'm just wondering that if we let the power company keep what they've got, the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of the people in this room are going to be back in this building in a few years. And we don't need to do that. Let's resolve this problem today. That's all I have to say. I yield my time.
Thank you. Next, we have Monica Wright.
Hi.
Yes.
Thank you so much for meeting with us and hearing our voices finally. Seems like it's been a long time coming. And I'd also like to thank this gentleman, I'm sorry I missed your name when you stood earlier, for a man that doesn't get paid for the research that he's done. You've done an amazing job, and I'd like to thank you from everyone in this room. Sitting in this room today and looking around this room today, this is not a dime's worth of people that live in Marshall County. This doesn't even remotely begin to this is a small portion of Marshall County. I moved to Marshall County in 2020 as a place of retirement for my husband and I. And it's been a nightmare. 5 years. This Thanksgiving, 5 years. We've replaced every electronic device we own, every appliance we've owned, our well pump and our septic pumps. It has financially broke us. Financially broke us. We live in an amazing cove in the outskirts of Marshall County. And we have neighbors. We have a single neighbor. We have a single elder neighbor. We have a widowed neighbor. And my husband last year went through radiation treatments for cancer. We're in this time of the year, we start preparing ourselves for the winter. We have to.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, we do not have the necessities to get through some of the situations that we've been through with no power. And I bring up the...
I'm sorry, but the time ran out. We've got to start getting a little bit more.
Bringing up the situation about, we have a lot of people in our county. We have a lot of elder in our county. It's sad to see where we're headed. This county's headed because it has a lot of historical, it's got a great historical foundation if you really just get to the roots of it. But some of the questions that I would like, and you don't have to answer this today, but I would like to see answered. I think there's a lot of misallocation of funds.
Yeah.
A lot of misallocation of funds. I would love to see a financial audit done on the city of Holly Springs, HSUD, and the county of Marshall County. Mm-hmm. Love to see the numbers. Yeah. I would also like to see the number of fatalities due to negligence of HSUD and all of their infrastructure. I know for a fact one, and it's a horrific story to be heard. I would like to know what the fatality rate is. And how do you plan to fund this? You're broke. I think the bottom line is that, and from what I understand, and I may be incorrect because this is hearsay, that the city of Holly Springs is broke. They've been taking money from HSUD in order to fund the city and stay afloat. That's where the financial audit needs to come in. Is this really the truth of the matter? But we're financially, everyone in this room at some point has probably become financially crippled by HSUD. And we cannot keep going down this same road because we do not get answers. We asked for answers a little over a year ago when we all met. A lot of us met in Holly Springs on the square. Asked the mayor to be there, asked representatives to be there. The people, probably a lot of the people in this room are the same people that showed up on the square that day. We left there with our heads down and no answers because nobody with the city or Marshall County or HSUD would come in and speak to us. We have begged. We're living on prayers and promises, and we need your help today. And furthermore, I'd rather pay the difference. I'd rather pay a higher utility bill than what I have gone through the last 5 years. The cost would have been significantly lower than the financial crisis it's put me in now.
Paying a higher bill is not so much the issue as if you're paying for service.
Yeah.
We're not getting any service.
We're not getting the service.
Yeah.
And we have outages every day in my community.
Thank you for coming. Next, we have David Smith.
First of all, I really want to thank you guys for stepping into this, and I'm sorry that it's taken the time that it has. But I've got a small business at the Marshall County Airport, Holly Springs Airport, which is closer to Red Banks. But I have lost money and time because of the outages. When the power stops, my production stops, but I have to keep paying the payroll. Another thing about safety is when the power's out, you've lost all your landing, runway lights and stuff like that, So people have to divert to Olive Branch. But I'd like to know, what is the gross income that they draw in off of our utility payments? Because I know I've paid as high as $1,000 in a month during the winter times. Where is this money going? They're crying for $2 million here, $2 million there. Well, 12,000 customers. Even if it's only $400 each, that's $4.8 million a month. Where is this money going? So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you for your comments. Next on the list is Dennis. Sorry, I can't read the penmanship.
That's me.
Yes, sir. What's your last name?
Turnpike.
Turnpike. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Dennis Turnpike, and I've lived here for about 16 years up on Roberts Chapel Road. And during that time, I've seen just about everything there is to see that is completely wrong about everything. I am a mechanical electrical engineer from Purdue University. I moved the plant down to Batesville, Arkansas, where I met my wife. I have worked in Juarez, Mexico, worked in Europe twice, worked in Taiwan and Thailand. Under the worst conditions, I've had bodyguards and so on and so forth, the places I've been. I have never seen a system run like this ever, any place I've ever been, because the people that were in charge knew that power was the most important thing to keep factories running and to keep people employed. This is complete gross negligence. It's an embarrassing fact. And when I come in here today and I hear those things about safety, you heard me. Lockout, tagout, no system. Oh my God. Your people are the most important things, assets that you've got working for you. It is crazy. It's too if you want to look at it financially, it's crazy. But what it does to the people and the support around them when you lose somebody is gross. Our last power outage was just last week. We lost 2 poles down the street, or down the road from us. They should have been replaced during the ice outage that we had a few years ago. One of those poles was split, and it was out at a 75-degree angle like this, with a split going down through it. And I've just been waiting for it to go for the last several years, and it finally went. And when it went, it took another pole on down there. It took more than a day to replace 2 poles. Now, I know that it was either a manpower shortage or they didn't even have the poles available in the system to put in the ground. I mean, all right. Well, I think you know where I'm coming from. From a professional and a personal standpoint, you can't trust this system. These guys may be completely great, but I'm going to tell you, there's going to be another election, and the good old boys are waiting there. People voted for the last mayor in this last election. They're still out there.
Thank you.
That's all I got to say.
Next on the list is Steve Paupst.
Hello, I'm Steve Paupst, resident of Marshall County for 18 years. Live up off 72 due north of Holly Springs. I've suffered, all the power outages that everybody's talked about, thousands of dollars of loss, and here more recently now, decreasing my property value. I get, all the regular bills that everybody's talking about, but what I dislike the most is, Holly Springs can be given something and say, okay, guys, go do it. They can't be trusted to do that. They've shown over a chronic period of time they can't be trusted to take care of it. And they don't care if I have no power, if the guy on Oxygen down the road don't have no power. They don't care. I'd personally like to see the commission at least strip the county away from Holly Springs, because I don't want my money going to pay for them to do their jobs that they don't do. I mean, it's ridiculous, and I have no say-so about it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That is everybody on this list. Did I miss anybody? Yes, ma'am?
Thank you, gentlemen, ladies. My name is Edith Old. I'm a resident of Red Banks. In my 40-year career in state and federal government, as a journalist and as a CEO of multiple nonprofit agencies, I've traveled across the southeast United States, working alongside people in very rural, economically challenged communities. I've traveled outside the United States to more than 20 countries, many considered third world countries. Countries that, despite monumentally harsh, critically impacted catastrophic typhoons, earthquakes, and famine, I've seen with my own eyes that despite those overwhelming obstacles, communities in those third world countries can and do sustain reasonably adequate utility service. A time frame used several times today as a point of reference for the cascading tumult that HSUD customers have had to bear is 20 years. Are you willing to wait 20 years for a shower or to flush the toilet? Thanks be to God, in the past 20 years, HSUD customers have not endured catastrophic typhoons, earthquakes, or a scorched-earth famine. So in the context of the absence of third world level catastrophes, please allow me the privilege to share our firsthand experience of the disturbing catastrophic effects that HSUD continues to have on our community's lives. This is from my personal journal dated August the 18th. It's not a good day. At this moment, our power is out again. We don't know how many times this has happened just in the last month. We've lost count. But we do know that the frequency and duration of these outages that have increased at an alarming rate over the past several years are inhumane and should not be tolerated by the people in this community, nor those whom we've elected to serve for the greater good. No, once again, it is not a good day. A good day is when we have electricity to run our window unit air conditioners and well pump so that we have clean drinking water for us and our loyal dog. Water with which to cook, bathe, and to flush the toilet. A really good day is when we have that and no low voltage power surges frying our appliances, requiring us to replace them. Our fixed income budget does not easily pivot to accommodate those unplanned, frequent, exorbitantly expensive, and yet mandatory replacement of these now rendered useless appliances.
Go
I'll-
ahead.
Thank you kindly. Nor is our budget amenable to replacing thousands of dollars of spoiled food resulting from power outages that occur when we are not present to set up our generator. An excellent day is when one of us is able to work from home unhindered by the lack of electricity that disrupts internet access, adversely impacting our employment. In the last 10 days, there's been a new twist to this saga. Ironically, the electricity has stayed on, but AT&T has had numerous outages in our service area, lasting more than a few hours. It begs the question, has AT&T's system been similarly damaged by HSUD's failures? And will these outages cascade and increase the likelihood that AT&T will no longer provide service to our community? We yearn for those rare occasions when we can prepare a meal, knowing that the power won't go out before, during, or when cleaning up after the meal. And as our friends mentioned earlier about it being a chicken or egg situation, that meal might be a chicken or an egg, but we may not be able to cook it. Unfortunately for these two Marshall County senior citizens, there are very few good days, fewer really good days, and we cannot recall the last time we experienced an excellent day. We can remember increasingly frequent instances of struggling together to haul out our generator so we can try yet again to sustain our refrigerated food, a now low voltage impaired window air conditioner, our hearing aid, and phone chargers. As if it was yesterday, because it was, we remember having again to haul and store containers of potable water upstairs to enable us to flush a toilet. We are acutely aware that as senior citizens, one of whom has Parkinson's disease, that as our mobility and stamina decrease, so too has HSUD's integrity and reliability to ensure the most basic elements attributable to quality of life. Our physical and mental health have been affected by this HSUD-induced trauma. We also believe that HSUD's gross negligence to be responsible for our having to replace thousands of dollars of perishable food. We have spent many more thousands of dollars to replace major appliances. I won't list them here. Our anxiety soars as we fear, as the gentleman remarked earlier about the effect on his property value, our anxiety soars as we fear that selling our Red Banks property may be impossible. Not difficult, impossible now, having a devastating effect on our retirement. You've been made aware of HSUD's abysmal customer service. We won't belabor the point, but we'll state for the record that as of the date of August the 18th, we had yet to receive a bill. We did finally receive our June bill yesterday, and it informed us that we would be cut off if it wasn't paid by June the 25th. Yesterday was September the 3rd. Sir, this is not a new nor an infrequent occurrence. We also state that calling HSUD to report yet another outage fails to provide any insight to the cause of the outage or any reasonable estimation for when power will be restored. HSUD's failed attempt to maintain electronic meter reading equipment was replaced by well-meaning young people armed with pencils and dog-eared legal pads to record data. Like our neighbors, we vacillate from frustration to furor, from anxiety to outrage that politics, mismanagement, and dare I say perhaps malfeasance have and continue to keep us literally in the dark without the ability to control the air temperature in our home, either when temperatures drop below freezing or as of today when the temperature exceeds 100 degrees before the heat index. We sit in the dark without the ability to water our garden, water our dog, cook, bathe, or have dependable water with which to take daily medicine. This is simply reprehensible. While less caring politicians bloviate and their paid influencers promote a more palatable earworm, that is, Mississippi is the hospitality state, we are encouraged today to witness those who observed that we were going to exercise grandmama rules and let the ladies sit down. So we do have some encouragement from today's meeting. But while we are heartened by your efforts, we implore you, please do not leave this room today without action. Thank you.
That completes our list. Do you have a motion? Yeah. Anybody else? That was the whole list. Anybody else? Okay.
I just want to briefly say something. Something struck me earlier when we were talking about employees earlier. This is just an example. Last year, late last year, I had an outage. It was a trip fuse at the road. You know, 10-minute fix to come out with a little bowl, pop it back in. And the reason being is because tree limbs had been on the wires and they kept near the transformer. And I've been calling for a couple of years trying to get the foliage cut off the line. Nobody ever came. So once again, you know, this has been going on several times this year, but I called 8 times over a 24-hour period. And every time, the first time I called, they said, oh, somebody's working on it right now. Well, ma'am, how can that be as it's just me? It's just my house affected by this trip fuse. So I kept calling 8 times during a 24-hour period. And when finally someone showed up, Mr. Campbell, he said, well, we never got a report out in the field that you had an outage. How can that be? 8 phone calls, which I have receipts. 8 phone calls. And no one ever showed up for 24 hours. I had to go get gas for the generator 3 times. And nobody had received a report in the field that I had outage. So somebody's not doing their job. You know, I don't know if that was the radio situation, where they don't want to use the radio or whatever, but there's instance after instance where, and I see it all online, where people say, you know, people aren't doing their jobs. So yeah, there is an employee problem.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Okay. Before we make a motion, I'd like to ask legal staff, what are our today options that we would need to deliberate over? so that the audience will know what our options are
Yes.
to do.
What,
Just-
and to clarify, what can we?
What are the, just list them out.
What can we or can't we do today?
Okay, so I have to be the bearer of bad news, and I hate that, but this is my job. So we have to follow the statute at 77-321 in order to make sure that we, check our boxes and do what we have to do. So today, this hearing was to decide, and the ruling that will be made today is as to whether or not the commission finds that there has been insufficient service. If there's unreasonable service done and they make that ruling, then under the statute, there's language that would say, and I'm just going to say, this is again something we have to work out between us, but there's language which John indicated earlier, which he's not wrong, that is what the statute actually says. So there's language in there that suggests that that at that point we're supposed to look at what the issues are and give deadlines for those things to be corrected. I have in the past made decisions where I didn't give that time if I thought that it was useless, essentially, like there was no ability to correct it. I bypassed it, and then you just have to kind of fight that out. That's just a legal issue that lawyers would have to fight out. But that would be, if you bypass that, you could go directly to your one defined option, which is then to file a petition with the Chancery Court to place the system into receivership. And that would be the only prescribed option we've been given. There are other things that maybe that would produce in terms of negotiating things to happen, but that's legally the process.
Thank you.
And one last question. This is to your study. You spoke about the equipment needs that are necessary for the system. How long would it take anybody, no matter who's in control, to acquire the equipment necessary to make this system stable?
Well, that's going to be based on your long lead time item, right? So like a substation transformer or whatever, so.
And I know you might have a specific answer,
Right,
but
and so those are going to be year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. It just depends on what the market looks like right then. And then when you get to things like the vegetation and some of the other things that are system-wide, it's really how many crews can you throw at it without getting too many out there to where they're causing a danger to themselves and each other. But with 2 right-of-way crews, it's going to take a certain amount of time. If you put 10 out there, it's going to take less time. The money's probably going to be the same in general. So it's just how you go about it. The long pole in the tent is things like just specialized equipment, like a substation transformer.
I just want to make sure we said that before we go into deliberation so that we can chart some timelines, because I'm a big fan of define the scope of the problem, slice it up into the phases you want to execute, and assign tasks, timelines, and assignment so that we can in turn keep accountability, because whatever action we take, the citizens in this room want to pay for it. So I want to make sure we make the best decisions necessary and have the appropriate accountability measures in place so that there is no price gouging that happens when people are in angst or in a dire situation like this. Thank you, sir.
You have a follow-up?
I'd like the motion to go into executive session to discuss the matters that we've been presented, Mr. Chairman.
I've heard it. Y'all heard the motion. A second?
Oh, excuse me. We go into closed session to determine if we should go into executive session for the legal matters that we've been presented. And also, I'd like to suggest that we just step out instead of just kicking everybody out immediately. That we just step out back.
Did you have a comment before?
So, every which way we go, to answer your question or comment, ever who is or isn't who takes care of it is going to have some financial decline. And they're going to have the ability to reach back into their logistics and their supply chain and pull it forward to fix this problem quickly.
Correct.
So ever who that player is.
Correct.
Is going to be a big player. And
Well,
that's what we're up against.
I mean, the bigger they are, the more they could bring to bear quicker.
Correct. I just want to ask something. the citizens a question. And it's just, we ask them where the money's going. I just want to ask the question. Please raise your hand if your bills average $200.
Average $200 bill.
So if it's averaging $300. $400. $500. $600.
How many utilities are there?
$700.
Just power bill alone.
$800. My point is, you ask where the money's going, my average bill on the coast is about $250.
And to clarify, that was just electricity bill, or is that including all utilities?
No, that's just electricity.
Is there any way that, I live in Benton County, I live out in the country. Is there any way that we could get off their electricity company and go to a different one? Is there any way that they could sell part of it?
To answer your question, the city could do what they want to at that point. So yes, they could do that.
They could do that.
They could.
What would the process be?
Well, that's not the form for
That would be the city to decide that, if they sold off part of their system. Okay, we have a motion. A second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And as the commissioner said, you're more welcome to stay here. We need to go discuss what our options are and what we can and can't do, and it won't be very long. Thank you for your patience. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We're back out of executive session. No action being taken. We want to take our action in front of the public. So thank you all for your patience and for everything that's going today. We're going to go into our closing remarks and then have the ruling at the end. So Commissioner Stamps, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say thank you for enduring this entire hearing and this process. The city of Holly Springs entered into the electrical business at a time where no one would provide power to this area. And at that time, however many years ago that was, the city took that risk and provided power in a space where many other private companies would not. And investments were made over decades, and disinvestments were made over decades, which brought us to where we are today. I was enlightened and heartened by the citizens' responses, and I was disheartened by some of the responses of answers to questions. And I didn't want to be here, but I'm glad that we are, and I look forward to working with Commissioner Brown to resolve issues going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Stamps. Commissioner Carr?
Yes. We the people have spoken, and I've heard you all the way down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and so I'm here. I can't imagine what y'all have been through. I know what it's like when we have a hurricane and we're out, you know, I remember Camille, we was out 2 weeks. That's nothing what y'all been through. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And so I'm thankful for this process. Thank y'all for y'all's input. Thank you for Holly Springs and their mayor. And I want to thank y'all too for y'all's report. It's been an eye-opening. I read it last night all over again to refresh it. It's eye-opening. And being from that industry, I just can't understand how we got to this point. But here we are, and I hand it back to you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Carr, Commissioner Stamps. Today's made one thing very clear. Based on the facts before us, this commission has no other choice but to move as we're moving today. We know these problems have been building for years and decades. But I want to assure you, the end is in sight. This commission is committed to seeing this process through, and we will not stop until the citizens within the HSUD service area have the reliable, sustainable power that you deserve. That means a better quality of life for your families, new job opportunities, stronger property values, and economic growth and activity. Make no mistake, this commission will see this through. We are in the final stages of securing a lasting solution, and we will not stop until it is in place. You have carried this issue forward with your persistence and your voices, and together we will achieve the reliable and sustainable power that this community deserves. I would like to thank the city of New Albany for hosting us, for the police force, for use of this building. I want to thank everybody for coming out. Thank you to the city of Holly Springs, which is actually participating. We appreciate the candor and the transparency that you're offering. I want to thank everybody that's come out and everybody that's watching. You know, we've heard your cries. This is not just another meeting, but there are limitations that we can do within the law, and so we're going to push the limits of what we can do to make sure that everybody in the Holly Springs Utility District has the reasonably adequate service that you deserve. It's been a long time coming, decades again in the making. It's time to turn the corner and start fixing the problem. We can't kick the can down the road anymore. You're suffering, our state's suffering, and as we said before, we heard your cries and we're here with you. We're going to stay the course, and we're going to work with everybody that worked with us to make sure that we get this system triaged, repaired, fixed as quick as humanly possible. With that, I would like to make the first motion. I move that the commission find, based on proof in the record, that the City of Holly Springs and Holly Springs Utility Department has wholly failed to render reasonably adequate service in violation of Mississippi Code Section 77-333 and Rule 4 of the Rules and Regulations governing public utility service. That's my motion. Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Second motion, I'd like to move that we reserve the ruling of assessments and penalties for these violations.
Second.
Have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Third motion, I'd like to move that based upon the prior documentation, the commission will proceed with the initiation of receivership proceedings in Chancery Court without entering a separate order specifying in what particulars HSUD has failed to render adequate service. HSUD has been on notice for more than 2 years of its inadequacies, having been audited by TVA and TVPPA. Based on the testimony today, all inadequacies largely remain, made apparent again by the Silver Point report that we heard today. If, as the city testified, best efforts have been made, the commission sees no need to allow additional time for redress. That's my motion. A motion is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So that's any. So that concludes the meeting today. Sir? So basically, explain in normal terms what happened is obviously we deemed that the Holly Springs Utility Department is not providing reasonably adequate service. That passed unanimously 3-0. The second motion was that we reserved the right to penalize the HSUD for the violation of 77-333. The third, and it passed unanimously. The third motion is to move towards the proceedings to get this in front of a chancery court. So on all three, those are the three things that just happened. So again, our goal is to come and help fix it. And we'll work with everybody that will work with us to make sure that you, the people, get the reliable, adequate service that you deserve. We've heard your voice, and we're answering the call, and it's not going to happen overnight, but I think all of us will work hand in glove to stay the course to make sure that Holly Springs Utility District is no longer one of 153 that is not providing the service that they should. So with that, any other questions, comments? Hearing none, thank y'all, and meeting's adjourned.